What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
I'm bigger than you. I'm higher in the food chain.
RadioWhat.com.
What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me, yes, me, Keys Dan, at your event. Coming up on the program today, we got Teresa Roebuck. What do I know about Teresa Roebuck? Well, she's a very interesting lady. She seems kind of interesting. I don't know a lot about her. I think she sells some products. She's some kind of an entrepreneur. And I'm looking forward to speaking to her today on the program. This week's shows. Well, I'll be doing a lot of podcasting this week. I'm kind of excited about that. I got a few shows lined up. And on Friday nights, I'll be at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas for the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. That's my usual Friday night pit stop. Starts at 8 p.m. And you, yes, you, I'm talking to you, are the stars of the show. Yes, come on out to the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Full bar, kitchen is open, pool tables. In fact, they have a pool tournament on Friday nights. So if you want to make some money, you could, try your hand at some pool. Get in the pool tournament. And let's see, the party patio has shuffleboard. There's foosball out there. There's giant Jenga game, checkers. So there's always something to do while you're waiting to sing a song. Yes, the stage is yours. It's a little concert starring each and every one of you. So come on out to the Rab, Conway, Arkansas, Friday night, 8 p.m. until, past your bedtime, probably, until last call, probably past 1:30 in the AM, almost 2 in the AM. I let them go until just up to the minute. So that's the Rab, Conway, Arkansas. Time to talk to Teresa Roebuck. Kind of excited. Don't have to be on the phone on this one. Hey, I like my phone conversations. Sometimes you just can't get to Conway, Arkansas from all over the world. So you get to speak to a bunch of different people. But this time I get to speak to Teresa Roebuck. She is right in Conway, Arkansas. So exciting for me, exciting for you. Let's find out more about Teresa Roebuck. Traveling to Teresa Roebuck's house now. Teresa Roebuck.
Yes.
Ask me anything you want.
Okay.
It's Keys Dan with the What Makes You Famous show.
Keys Dan.
Yes.
Okay.
Handshake once again. Hanging out in the living room. The Roebuck, the complex? What do we call
the
it?
Roebuck Cellars, yeah.
All right. So give people a little idea, a little biography of who you are, Teresa Roebuck.
Wow. Okay, that's a tall order, I suppose. I've been around a long time now. I grew up in Conway, basically. I started first grade here. My parents moved here when I was young. So I grew up in Conway with all its quirks and fun of things that were happening back in the 60s and 70s. Stuck around, went all the way through Conway High School till the 11th grade, and then in the 12th grade I was provided with the opportunity to go be an exchange student to South America for a year. So I took my senior year off of school and went to Chile in South America and learned how to speak Spanish really well, which has served me my entire life. I recommend highly that anyone learn a second language. It's one of the best things you can do for your brain and your opportunities in life. So I always recommend for folks to learn more than one language. Came home to Conway and started school at Hendrix College. Graduated from Hendrix College in 3 years, from 1975 to 1978. After college, I graduated in 1 week and I got married the next. and was married to one of my professor's sons. We met at college, and we ended up being married. And I have a beautiful daughter from that marriage named Mariah Allen. And gosh, it just kind of rolls like that. I have had management jobs. I've had library work. I've always been a kind of a serial entrepreneur. I produced and edited a book of short stories back in my 20s. That's actually has, to my intense pride, a Library of Congress call number. It's a real book. It is, of course, no longer in print, but it was for local writers, and I had some really great folks share that with me. Dr. Foy Lisenby submitted some work, and some just great poets around the county and writers. So that was a lot of fun, and I've just done stuff like that my whole life. I just think if something's fun, I give it a shot. So I've taught Spanish classes independently. I've taught Spanish classes to the Conway PD department, the fire department. I taught at adult ed for many years. I taught public schools. Sorry, got a little frog in my throat. And most currently, let's say, I taught in the classroom. Then I worked for the Department of Education as their online professional development coordinator and set up the system of professional development approval for all of the teachers in the states. Anything that came in from outside of the Arkansas educational systems had to be approved. So I did that approval process and set that up. Did a lot of professional development myself, needless to say, across the counties. And one of the companies that I enjoyed their product that is available to Arkansas teachers was called Discovery Education Streaming. And it's the largest nonfiction library, digital library in the world. And a company called Discovery Education, which is an arm of the Discovery Channel, asked me to come work for them. And I did that for the last 7 years. Well, not anymore. I worked for them from 2011 to the end of 2017. And then my mother passed away, got sick and passed away. And so I decided it was time to kind of do a semi-retirement situation. But I don't like to do nothing, so I continue to offer Spanish classes to private groups, small groups. That's a lot of fun. I have a very innovative way of teaching Spanish that most people find to be very easy to accomplish their goal of learning how to, say some things in Spanish and get kind of the foundation for it. Matter of fact, that's what I used to call it all the time, was Spanish fun, little air fingers there, fundamentals. And then I began my Rodan and Field skincare business as a way to augment our retirement, and it's just been a ton of fun. So, boy, that is like me in a long rattle.
Yeah, Teresa. Okay, podcast over. I think we've covered it all.
Nothing else to say.
If you look at Wikipedia pages, they always have a summary, a synopsis up at the top, and then they go through your history. What happened in the beginning, early life. If it's going over a person, usually they'll give an overview of what they've done. And that's what you've done. You've given us an overview of what you've done, Teresa Roebuck. And now let's go into the belly, the body of the Wikipedia page, and dig deeper into who you are. First of all, I'm hanging out here in your living room, and I've got so much to see. If you've ever been to one of those restaurants, those kitschy restaurants where they have lots of knickknacks on the walls and stuff for you to see while you're waiting for your food or while you're having food, things that'll give you ideas. I'm seeing your entire life in pictures on the wall. This room is full of knickknacks.
Pretty close to it, yes.
We can start right there. Explain some of the knickknacks that I'm looking at just in your living room, because I can see down the hallway from your couch.
There's more.
There's plenty more. There's books. There's a whole kitchen full. I can kind of side my eye into the kitchen too. But there's a lot to see here. And you mentioned your kids and your family a little bit. So tell a little bit about the pieces maybe the ones right in front of me in the in the curio cabinets.
Well, here's the foundation of that. My husband, Bruce Sellers, and I are very opposite kinds of people. But the thing with the knickknacks is, as I told him one time, I like to live in a visually stimulating environment. He calls it cluttered. I call it visually stimulating. And the reason I have that kind of focus is because I was legally blind until I was 15 years old.
What?
Nobody knew I could not see past the end of my nose. Literally could not see past the end of my nose. But masked it by being able to read all the time and doing well in school and just sort of adapting my brain to that fuzzy shape means a tree and that fuzzy shape means a car. But I kind of got the reputation of being standoffish and not very friendly because if people would wave at me, I would have no idea that they had done it or who they were. And so I just, I was very self-centered into my own little world that I could see. And at age 15, I finally convinced my parents, God bless them, with the help of one of my former teachers who would not let me walk up to the front of the room to copy off the board. She would not let me do that. And so I finally convinced my parents that I needed to get my eyes tested because nobody could believe that somebody has read as much as I did and made good grades and all that was unable to see. And so they took me to the eye doctor, and my first pair of glasses was a prescription of 2,200, which is the definition of legally blind. And
bottle.
Yeah, and for the first time in my life, I was actually able to see individual leaves on the trees, and I could tell who someone was across the courtyard or, in the car driving past. So, I don't know, I guess it just affected me because I always want to be able to see my stuff.
Yeah, your story parallels my baby brother's story.
Yeah?
They used to ask him if anybody needs to come to the closer to the board, please do so. He walked inches away from that board.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to be able to see. And his first glasses were Coke bottle bottom glasses. So you say you moved to Conway from somewhere. Where were you born?
I was born in El Dorado, Arkansas.
Okay.
My parents, my dad worked for one of the he worked for a feed store down there, but knew the people in the oil industry that it's centered in El Dorado. And then we moved to a little town called Emmett, Arkansas. It's still in South Arkansas. It is. It's between Hope and Prescott. And it had, back then, a tourist attraction run by Arkla Gas, and it was called Arkla Village. And my parents ran the tourist attraction. My dad was the manager of the general store, and my mom ran the Sarsaparilla Saloon. And
so it was like an Old West.
It was like an Old West, it was like an Old West town. And we lived there till I was 6, and then my dad and mom decided there were more opportunities elsewhere, and we moved to Conway when I was 6.
Well, what do you remember?
I started
what do you
first
remember
grade
about being in the old West town? Did you dress up like a cowgirl?
We did. Every day we'd have every year we'd have Frontier Year. My memories of it are kind of very small and specific.
Sure.
I remember in the general store there was a Cracker Barrel, literally.
Okay.
That was as big as that brown chair sitting there, which is like take both arms as big as you can around, and it was a barrel with the iron straps around it.
Sure.
But there was a hole in the top of it, and that's where you kept the soda crackers. And I remember being so small that I would have to jump up on the top of the barrel, and I would half fall in through the opening to pick the crackers out of the Cracker Barrel. Yeah. And then my dad would slice us some good old cheddar cheese off the cheese wheel, and that would be our snack in the afternoon. Because I wasn't in school yet, so I hung out with Mom and Dad at the western town. And then I rode around in a surrey with a gentleman that worked with them.
What's a surrey?
A surrey is a kind of wagon. It's a little, I don't know exactly what kind of wagon, but it's like an open-air sporting vehicle.
I only know it from Oklahoma with the fringe on top.
That's the one, the surrey with the fringe on top. It was exactly like that. And I would ride with Mr. McCullough, Millard. His name was Millard McCullough. I'm hoping I'm remembering that correct. I was still only 6.
Yes.
And he would take other tourists around, drive them around the place. And I would ride with him, and he would let me be in charge of the air conditioning. So whenever people were hot, he would say, well, you want to turn the air conditioning on? And I'd say, sure, and I'd pretend to turn a knob. And he'd make the horses go faster so the breeze came. So I just thought I was magic, at that time.
You are magical.
So
That's
magic.
fantastic.
Yeah. So he was a sweet man. And
Yes.
I had a lot of fun growing up in that little place. My older brother is 3 years older than I am, and we had a lot of fun playing Western games and shoot 'em up and cowboys and Indians. Matter of fact, we set our front porch on fire one time with a Indian campfire. So that didn't go over real well, but
Your brother's my brother. He set stuff on fire.
Mm-hmm.
My little army men that I would have put up on my desk there, he would set them on fire. Oh, they were in a war. That's what happened. They melted.
They melted.
Ooh, yeah. So
Yeah.
having siblings is great.
Right.
And just so you know, we do have another voice in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Introduce that man over there.
that is my wonderful husband,
Uh-huh.
Bruce Sellers, and he's welcome to say whatever he cares to. He sits over there like I'm not supposed to talk, but he kind of can't help himself. So.
Well, he's chaperoning.
Yeah.
His best girl is sitting here with some strange guy on the living room couch, and just having a conversation about things.
But yeah, Bruce and I have quite the story of our own.
Well, we'll get to that. You're still 6 years old.
I'm still. Oh God, we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, in a Surrey with the fringe on top. We got hours and hours. People want to know
You can
all
make
about
this
Teresa
thing
Roebuck.
for like a year long.
Let's do it. We can do it in parts and just revisit every once in a while as time progresses.
There we go. So there was the 6 years old. I don't know how we got from the knickknacks to 6 years old.
Now you're
Yes.
setting things on fire. This is a story.
My brother
for you
Tony and
both.
I got into a lot of trouble. It was mostly led by Tony, but I'm sure I was a more than willing participant.
Tony, she's calling you out.
That's right, Tony Roebuck. People in Conway will know Tony Roebuck. We all grew up here.
Oh, okay. All right.
much,
So,
so.
how many siblings?
I have 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Oh, okay.
And my
all still around?
yes. Well, not in Arkansas. Ken is in Arkansas. The youngest, my brother, 12 years younger than me, is in Little Rock, and then my sister, who's the oldest, is in Tallahassee. My oldest brother is in the D.C. area, and my middle brother, Tony, is a unity minister in Austin, Texas. So he kind of went from causing trouble to helping those, in trouble.
Well, we all have to repent, don't we? I suppose.
Get better options for their life.
So, all born in El Dorado?
No. Let's see. Becky and Roy. Becky was born in Warren, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Roy was born in Fayetteville, or I might have those switched. Mm-hmm. Tony was born in Mississippi, Grenada, Mississippi, and I was born in El Dorado, and Ken was born here in Conway.
So parents have always been with oil business
No,
to
not
begin
oil.
with?
My dad was also an entrepreneur. He always owned his own sales company, Roebuck Sales Company, and he worked for different.
Nothing to do with Sears and Roebuck?
Unfortunately, no. Nothing to do with Sears. But he
I had to ask,
yeah,
because of the
everybody
name.
does. Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time somebody had asked me that over
I'd have
60
$1.25.
plus years, I would have a lot of money. Now, my dad worked for feed companies and oil, and not oil, but feed companies, and the last company he worked for was a wind-powered tractor-driven generator to generate electricity for farmers and chicken farmers and dairy farmers across the state. But he was very well known across the state and very, very highly regarded. But we lost him 30 years ago, and it's been one of the tragedies of my life that I missed him so much. So.
Got pictures of him up there?
He's the young one right there. The most recent picture of him before he passed is in another room.
Okay.
But that's my mom with her hand on her chin there, and then my dad in his service uniform back in World War II next to her up there.
What job did he do in World War II?
He was an aircraft mechanic. He never left the country, but he was an aircraft mechanic and worked here in the States during World War.
Well, those aircrafts need mechanicking, that's for sure. That's a good job.
Absolutely. I have all of his service papers and his and Mom's marriage certificate and stuff. They were married 38 years before he passed.
And what did your beautiful mama do when they
my
were
mom has, from the time I was 15 years old, owned a small business here in Conway called the Bookworm, she was the book lady, and it was a little used bookstore, and she could tell you anything you wanted to know about what kind of book you wanted to read. You could tell her the name of one or two books that you liked, and she could find you as many more as you could ever possibly desire. People walked out of her bookstore with literally sacks of books. She really catered to the heavy reader and was very well known and loved. It was right downtown next to the old Daisy shop, and she was there for over 30 years.
Well, I'm very privileged. As you're talking about your parents, I'm getting to have a visual of what they look like and who they are. Very smiley. I know a lot of people smile for pictures, but they look very happy.
They were exceptional people. We had an exceptional life.
Good upbringing.
Good upbringing. Couldn't have asked for better parents. Staunch Methodist. Well, my mom was a converted Baptist, but she followed my dad and became a Methodist.
See, I'm not sure what the difference is. If you know what the difference between I know Christianity has different offshoots, but I don't know the difference between a Methodist and a Baptist.
I'm not the one to ask.
I was born a Catholic, but now I'm American, I guess.
Right.
So you grow. You grow.
I'm not the one to ask the specific differences, but at the time there was enough differences that that she became a Methodist to be with him, and they were. My father's family has a long history in the Methodist Church. One of his great uncles was actually a circuit rider for the Methodist Church, and his name was Fred Roebuck, and he lived to be 104, and he was a Methodist minister in Fort Smith. But he had been one of the early circuit riders of the Methodist Church and rode his horse across counties to deliver the message, to folks that didn't have a local preacher or a church.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just we've got a great family. I still have aunts and uncles in South Arkansas. Bless their hearts, they're the last ones. All of Mom's and Dad's brothers and sisters have passed now, but except for, like I said, the one still in South Arkansas. And so we're very fortunate. He came from a large family. She only had one brother. He had 7 brothers and sisters. And
okay, maybe that's the difference right there. The be fruitful and multiply part.
Could be. It's hard to say. Yeah, no, I come from a long line of very independent and strong women. Like I said, my mom owned her own business back when it was certainly not a common thing. And then my dad's mother raised 8 children in the Depression by herself. Her husband was murdered when my dad was 10 years old by a neighbor with a mental illness who thought he was a revenuer coming to get his steal. And so she raised 8 children by herself in the Depression before she remarried when they were older. And then her oldest daughter, my grandmother's oldest daughter, my oldest aunt, drove 12 hours in the night by herself when she was 72 years old because my grandmother needed her. And she drove over from Odessa, Texas, to be with. So long line of strong women on both sides of my family. I'm very, very proud of
this
my
is
heritage.
in a time in the South when women were very sheltered and didn't even. I've heard tell of you get the menu at the restaurant, but there's no prices on it because women don't need to know that kind of thing.
No, my family had a ton of just very strong, as I call it, good stock, strong women, and I hopefully raise my daughters to be the same.
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters, 2 beautiful daughters, and smart and
Are these
capable.
they in the picture here?
Yes.
There's a beautiful black and white shot of 2 pretty girls,
That's
and
right.
and they're strong women.
Yes, they are.
Very cool.
Pretty amazing.
Well, I guess you could say brag on them a little bit.
Okay.
What do they do?
No problem.
And who they are?
My oldest, Mariah Allen, is she helps the U.S. Pizza folk here in town. They have 3 chain restaurants or 3 franchises, and she is their office manager for all 3 of them. So she lives here locally, close to. And we have dinner just about every week.
At U.S. Pizza?
No, not at U.S. Pizza here. She's a vegetarian, so she has some options, at different restaurants.
That's got to be conflicting. Working at a pizzeria.
They have great vegetarian options, absolutely. But her main claim to fame, in my opinion, is that she's an absolutely incredible artist. She drew that picture up there. She painted that painting there. The one of me and my youngest when she was little, the line drawing, and then the blue and gold painting is hers. She's just now beginning to offer her art for sale.
Oh, good.
So we're
Where
very
is she? Yeah,
excited.
where can we see
you
it?
can find her. It's called Headspace Heroine, and you can find her on her page on Facebook and Instagram. And then she has a selling spot on Society 6,
Okay.
which is all new, but her artwork is pretty phenomenal. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback over the couple of years that she's finally released it for people to see.
Well, good.
And then
Yes.
my
Once you have a
youngest,
talent
yeah.
like that,
Oh, absolutely.
don't keep it inside. Put it out to the world.
See the little origami cranes up there at the top, the silver?
I do.
Yeah, that's all one piece of paper, and she folded all those cranes from one continuous piece of paper.
Hold on.
They're connected.
It looks like a flock of birds.
Yeah.
And she made it out of one piece of paper.
It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
She's just got tons of talent. And then there's my youngest, our
Yes.
youngest. This is Bruce and I's daughter. Mariah's
Yes.
from my previous marriage.
Okay.
And then this is Sandra Claire Sellers. And she is a second lieutenant in the Air Force,
Oh, cool.
currently stationed in Texas, at an Air Force base in Texas. And she's a linguist. She speaks fluent Spanish, and she speaks Arabic, and she studied Russian. And she took the ROTC route through college, and when she graduated, she stepped into her second lieutenant's position and has spent a year as a recruiter in colleges in Minnesota, and now is at her first base assignment out in Texas. So we're quite
get 'em.
proud of her, yeah.
Well, as we're talking, I heard that Minnesota had 3 feet of snow last night.
Oh gosh, she'll be happy she's not there, I'm sure. Although she's,
Was it? Maybe it was Montana. That's what I'm thinking. It's Montana. Thank you so much for the correction. And you're right. It's just one of the M states. So thank you for the correction on that one.
So hopefully, my girls will continue the tradition of, always learning and just exploring their options and just being out there.
Sounds like they're heading in
Living
the
a good
right
life.
direction.
I think so.
Teresa Roebuck,
Very
the
excited.
upstanding members of society.
No doubt.
You've done well.
Yes.
All right, so we're still all right.
We're still looking at knickknacks.
Knickknacks
Oh,
and
gosh.
just memories of what's going on with Teresa Roebuck. And you got out of that little small town with the Western theme, and then you where did you
We
go
moved
straight
to
from
Conway.
there? Then you got to Conway.
Yeah, we moved to Conway, and I started first grade in Conway.
First grade.
And just, grew up just like a normal kid in the 60s and 70s. But Bruce and I actually met in third grade, and that's a whole story.
No way.
Yes.
That's
We
fantastic.
first met each other in third grade and then continued throughout our entire school years as acquaintances. We never knew each other real well. And he understands the dynamic. So I laugh and say he was the party guy, the party boy, and I was the white bread girl. And so our paths didn't really cross very often until at our 20-year high school reunion, having never dated and no contact whatsoever really through after high school. We were just acquaintances. We knew each other.
Right.
We both came back to our 20-year high school reunion single, and we're married 6 weeks later. 8 weeks
Amazing.
later. 3 months?
Amazing
From June
story.
to October, we ended up being, and of course all the people in our class were just, just tickled.
I'm sure of it.
And incredulous and worried and
Yeah, opposites attract.
And wondering,
and
so,
I'll reserve judgment on who's the bad person and who's the good person, or the white bread or the bad boy, and the labels.
But the differences were definitely there, and then they weren't anymore, and we've been together ever since. And of course, we have our beautiful daughter, and it was absolutely. Pretty much love at first sight, except that he laughs and says he loved me first, and then I'll tell him that no, I loved him scaredest. And so, because he definitely has a history, and I had a 10-year-old daughter, so it was a time where I was concerned. And the truth of the matter is, I prayed about it a lot, and quite literally, I was praying about it, that I was concerned and I didn't know if I could trust him, because he'd been up front with me about his problems. He can tell you, and he would, He's a recovering drug addict, and so I was very concerned, and I was praying, how do I trust him? And, I've got my daughter and everything, and clear as day, just like I'm talking to you, a voice told me, it's not him you have to trust, it's me. And I knew God had said it was okay, that we would be all right.
Sounds like your faith has taken you pretty far in this life, or gotten you this far, Teresa Roebuck.
Absolutely, a very unconventional kind of faith. Absolutely, I'm not your standard churchgoer,
right?
But I definitely.
Right. I've met a lot.
I definitely walk on faith.
A lot of folks that have their belief, but maybe the church isn't right for them. Yeah. I think maybe religion could be perfect, but it's the people that kind of turn it in different directions.
So that story
look at
leads
this
to
kid.
the wedding picture.
All right.
Everyone had to be in masquerade except her mother, my father, and the preacher. It was a party.
Whose idea?
It was pretty shared, yeah.
And so this kind of Renaissance, maybe? Is that
it was Mardi Gras. We actually got married on Friday the 13th, but and it was close to Halloween. It's actually this coming month, October the 13th.
Oh, cool.
And then there's a picture up there of me and my youngest at the wedding. That's my gown with my fan in my hand.
Very fancy.
So everybody came in costume. We had a great party. And people we had it in a restaurant that used to be downtown called The Place to Eat, and they had a side room. Excuse me. And you could see into it from the street, and then everybody would go outside to smoke back then. None of us smoke anymore, thank God. But people would go outside in their costumes and smoke their cigarettes, and people would just be driving by the street going, what the heck?
Yes.
So it was a great time. So we had a lot of fun with that wedding, and we've had a lot of people ask us about our story and our wedding over the years.
Yeah, small town life. You start doing stuff like that, you become the talk of the town.
Yeah.
It was an event.
It was an event. It was a very fun event.
And you were you said it was right downtown?
Yeah, it was downtown where Mike's Place used to be.
I got you.
I mean, where Mike's Place is now is where the restaurant was. So it was right in that downtown strip.
Yep,
we had a great time.
I'm very familiar.
Everybody was in some really fun costumes, and we just had a great time.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
All right, getting to know Teresa Roebuck.
Oh gosh, it's just I have tried my whole life just to follow my curiosity, I guess, more than anything. I'm just insatiably curious, and I just love to learn things, and I step out on faith, and I have gotten to do some amazing things and met amazing people. You
say you spent your school life in Conway, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It was uneventful. Any extracurriculars? Anything that you did interesting during your school days?
I was in the band, and I loved playing in the band. I played the baritone, which is a large brass instrument.
Is that what is it, a saxophone?
No, it's like a baby tuba, baby.
Oh.
I mean, it's not really, and people who are in band will be like, how could you say that? But it's a brass horn that's about yay big, and it's quite lovely, bassish, tenorish, low sound.
Maybe the size of a large U.S. pizza?
Maybe a little bigger than that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's about the size. If you've ever seen the big marching tubas that are white, this is the one that's like a step below that. So it really is. It sat on my lap, and the bell came up about this tall above my head.
And you were in marching band.
And I was in marching band with that. However, being the smart person that I am, when they decided to create a flag line in Conway High School, I quickly ditched the baritone for a flag. I tried out and was the co-captain of the first flag line that Conway High School ever had in the band. So that was a lot of fun.
A lot easier to carry a flag than...
Except that I kept making, bruises on my legs where I would whap them with that pole as I would try to twirl it and learn how to twirl a big 6-foot flag on a 6-foot pole.
I'm imagining kids with nunchucks and hitting themselves in the leg, and maybe you'd hit yourself in the leg with a flagpole.
You would have to twirl it, on your side, and if you didn't keep it straight, it would hit you in the leg. Ooh. More often than not, in my case, till I finally got the hang of it. But I thoroughly enjoyed being in the flag line the last year that I was in the band before I left school and went to South America. So
yes. Well, being in the band, did you still have a lot of friends from bands, or do you have an affinity for music?
I definitely have an affinity for music. We've had a fairly constant reunion every 5 years since we graduated from high school. So there's a large group of Conway High School class of 75 that are always in contact, and we have a very fun reunion every 5 years. So yeah, I'm in contact with a lot of folks still from high school. We meet up fairly regularly.
Well, I'm noticing the Victrola here.
My
mother's got one of the taller ones with 78s on it. I think she has 2 or 3 78s. You have a couple stacked up there. Does it work at all still?
It does.
It does.
We have a cute little video of my mom dancing to it with our we had a little puppy back then, a little dog back then too, and
down by the
riverside. And there's a video on my Facebook page of us listening to that, and then we panned over, and there was my mom sort of dancing with the dog. My mom lived with us the last 3 years of her life, and so we have lots of great memories of things like that with her.
That's good to have those memories. She lived here in this house?
She lived here with
in
us.
Conway?
Yeah, she lived by herself till she was 84.
Whoa.
Ran her business until she was 83. Worked 5 days a week. No, 6 days a week. No, that's not right. Yeah, 5 days a week. But Monday through Saturday. And then stayed in business for 30-something years. Finally closed it down at 83, and then lived by herself for a couple of years longer after she didn't work. And then finally we'd always told her, that her place, we had a place ready for her whenever she was ready to come stop living by herself, and so she finally said, she was ready, but she teases my husband later on that he kidnapped her, because what happened was she ended up in the hospital one night, and we had been planning on moving her the next weekend anyway, and so rather than send her home alone again, we just brought her right on over to the house from the hospital, and then went and picked all her stuff up and brought it over, the whole next week. But so she laughs and said she went to the hospital and then came home and here, and that he'd kind of snookered her into it, but she had always agreed to come. But she was a real prankster. Had a great sense of humor, so she would pick on him quite a bit, but they loved each other very much, and I was very grateful of all the great care that he took of my mom, because I was traveling for work for all of those years really, except for the last summer I was off quite a bit. So I traveled for my job then, and he my sweet Bruce took care of everything. He ran the house and fed our daughter and took care of my mom, and I don't know what I'd do without him.
Let's hope you never find out.
I hope not.
You got a good man there. He's all smiley.
Yeah. He's my sweetie. So.
Yes. Okay. So
yeah, music's important. Reading obviously is important. Like my mother owned a bookstore. She probably read 3 or 4 books a day.
Whoa.
And I used to read, that many. 3 or 4 more a week. I didn't manage the daily route that she did, but reading used to be all the thing for me. I like anything that is either historical or futuristic. I'm not a very big fan of modern contemporary romance or contemporary novels.
No current events.
If it's no current events, but murder mysteries are good. Just basic fiction, and then of course my nonfiction. Things that I read are all basically psychology based or metaphysics and things like that. I have a master's in counseling psychology, so I do a lot of reading in that area. But I'm also very interested in spiritual topics and metaphysical teachings, and just mysteries of the world, mysteries of life.
Anything that stands out that you would recommend to the people?
Oh, anything by John Sanford. I'm reading one of his right now and he's actually a Jungian psychologist and an Episcopal priest, and I'm reading Dreams and Healing. And he uses our dreams to help us understand the collective consciousness, and he refers back to biblical teachings in his dream analysis and dream work. So he wrote a book called The Kingdom Within, which is priceless. I would recommend it to anyone. One of my favorite books ever.
Well, just a note to the listeners that you have this living room that's just made for reading. You just reached your hand out slightly to the right, and there was a book just ready to read.
Nobody's going to be surprised at that.
Okay, all right. No surprises here.
No surprises at me being a reader. No, not at all.
All right. So we're going through the school life, and I really want to get to the end of your school life in high school when you took your senior year. And what did you said you went somewhere. You went to Chile?
Yeah, my senior year of college, I decided to become an
high school.
I decided to become an exchange student. And I.
How do you become an exchange student?
Well, there was a program. There was a young woman who had come to Conway public schools from Bolivia, and she and I became fast friends and are still friends to this day. And she was from Bolivia. And she came with a program called Youth for Understanding. And so when I decided that I wanted to be an exchange student and maybe get to go to Bolivia, which would have been great, it didn't happen, but would have been great, we selected Youth for Understanding as our program, because we recognized its integrity and, that it was a up and up thing.
Is it a faith-based type
No,
thing?
not at all. It's an educational exchange program.
Okay.
And it started in the 50s. It has a lot of support from the Rotary Club, but it's ongoing, just an exchange program to help build better relations between countries by having, students go and see what life's really like and living with families and so on. So I was selected to go to, originally I was selected to go to Argentina, but I don't know if you're up on history, but in 75 in Argentina there was a coup. The whole Evita era, that they made the movie of Evita with Madonna and all that, that's that era where Argentina had a big political coup and a lot of military takeover. Chile had already gone through that. They were sort of in the 6 months after period of their military takeover. So they sent me to Chile instead of Argentina, because Argentina was in the middle of it, a lot of fighting and a lot of danger. So they sent us, that were going to Argentina, they sent us to Chile instead. And bless her heart, and my dad too, my parents literally had no idea where in the world I was for about 3 weeks. Because in the 70s, there was no instant communication of any kind, and it took that long for a registered letter to get back to my parents from where I was living in Chile at the time. So they were pretty unhappy about that. But,
I and my listeners are getting a brush up on history. The coup in 75, the struggles of the people in South America.
That's right.
And you're heading right for it.
Yeah, in Chile in 74, Augusto Pinochet had staged a military takeover of the government, of Allende's government, and then in Chile.
Chile, okay.
And so there was a military government in place. And I came into the country about 6 months after that had occurred. And
my eyes just opened wide. What?
Yeah, my first experience was driving from the airport to the home of the family who I was going to be living with, and having checkpoints with soldiers with machine guns every 20, 25 miles or so. There was a curfew in effect in the country pretty much the whole time I lived there, which was 14 months. And we went from like a 9 o'clock curfew where you had to be in your home and off the streets, or risk being arrested and or shot. And then that lasted till like 8 o'clock in the morning when people would leave to go to work. And then eventually by the time I left, the curfew had been lifted till like midnight or something like that. So it was like midnight to 8, it was a curfew on the streets. So I remember we went to a wedding one time, and it was just expected that the guests would spend the night because of the curfew. So, things had been set up where there were places people could nap and rest, but there was plenty of music and dancing and alcohol and food and, throughout the night for that very reason, because nobody got to go home. Yeah.
Oh wait!
It was a ton of fun.
So I thought he was the party boy. And
he was until I went to Chile. Yeah, absolutely. No, then I learned all about party hardy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were at the wee hour of the morning, at least on this one wedding day. So did you know Spanish at all before you went to Chile?
I thought I did.
Oh, okay.
How many years
had you done in high school?
I had studied it 3 years in high school.
Conway
and so
High School,
Conway High School, I felt, like I knew well enough. obviously I did not. The hardest thing was to pick up the slang, and discover the differences between the standard Spanish that I had learned and the actual spoken language that they used in Chile, especially among the young people who always had their slang. So, but once I eventually picked it up, it turns out I had quite a gift for it. And at one point before I left, I was actually mistaken more than once for a native speaker, which was kind of the thrill of my life at that point. For somebody asked me, what part of Chile I was from. I'm like, and it was this native speaker, and I'm like, oh, I'm from the U.S. And they're like, oh no, I'm like, no, English is my first language and Spanish is my second. So that was a lot of fun to learn to be fluent, just to speak whatever came into my head in another language. It's a fascinating process, and it's truly, it really does things quite literally. Scientifically, it changes your brain and increases your ability to do lots of things. So learning a second language is absolutely one of the most important things I think anyone can do.
Teresa Roebuck, it sounds like you have a thirst for knowledge.
Something like that.
El resto de este programa radial vas a estar en español. Para los que no habla español, no hay... I'm sorry, I can't remember how. Tengo pena, pero no puede entender todo de este programa porque necesito practicar mi español.
Okay, entonces puedes venir conmigo y vamos a hablar en español a cualquier lado. Vamos al restaurante y hablar en español con los personas que trabajan en el restaurante. Podemos ir al negocio, podemos ir a la iglesia, podemos vender cosas de Rodan & Fields, porque ahora todas las negocios y la información sobre el negocio está en español para que todo que pueden entender.
Bravo! Teresa Roebuck, good job. No, good job. No, that's I guess that part was for. Well, I'm guessing Claudia Fontaine's gonna be listening to this one, and maybe a few others out there. So yeah, good job. She does speak Spanish.
A little, yeah. I definitely need practice. I used to laugh and say I spoke Spanish 1 because that's what I taught for several years, was just Spanish 1, the first year. And so you get out of practice, and I could speak Spanish 1 really well. But eventually I got back into speaking it more often. And so,
full disclosure, I'm half Cuban from Miami, and I knew enough Spanish to work on a bilingual radio station down in Miami. And we played 2 English songs, like a disco or a freestyle or some 80s pop song, and then 2 Spanish songs, like a salsa, merengue, or even a banda song. So, Chile, the music, you had this flavor for music. What did you do down in Chile while you were in school?
Well, we had a lot of just afternoon. Played a lot of cards because it was easy to communicate, playing cards. And by the time I got more fluent, we just had become friends with several young women in the neighborhood, and we just hung out and we'd go for walks, or we'd play cards, or we'd do each other's hair, or they would try to convince me that getting your hair waxed on your leg did not hurt, and I never believed them, so I never would do it. I'm not that stupid. I know yanking your hair out with wax hurts, so I am not doing that on my legs.
Don't they call that a Brazilian?
No, that's a different thing.
Okay.
But we just did what teenagers do anywhere. We just hung out. But yes, we listened to the radio a lot. And I got to go to a music festival while I was in Chile, a very famous South American music festival in Viña del Mar, which is on the coast of Chile.
English music, Spanish
music?
No,
Spanish music. And not only South American music, but also Spanish music. I got to meet Camilo Sesto, who was a big Spanish star, I won't say rock star because it really wasn't rock music, but a big star at that time. I got to meet him and his band. Remember, I was 18.
Sure.
So
in 75.
Yeah, and I got to meet this young woman who, oh gosh, that was so much fun. Her family was Dutch. She was Dutch, and he was there on business, and they were living in this Hilton Hotel in Santiago, and we became friends because I helped her and her mom translate something. I was in Santiago at the time going to college. And yeah, because it's a different time. Like, I took a semester of high school, and then their school year ended, and then the next track for me would have been to go to a year of college. So I did. I had a semester of college while I was there. And anyway, so I was living.
Hubby's learning new things about you.
Yeah, he forgets things or whatever.
No,
but anyway,
believe it.
So,
I did a podcast with my brother, and I learned things about him I did not know. This is my brother.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, Teresa Roebuck.
So anyway, so it turns out that the band, Camilo Sesto and his band, were staying at the same hotel, and so we met the band members around the pool or whatever, and these two relatively cute little 18-year-old girls, so of course we were schmoozed up, and they invited us to their practice sessions and to the concert and all that, so we had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, and being Americana in Chile.
Being Americana did not hurt a bit, yeah. And of course, oddly enough, they considered me to be, she was actually blonde, the young Danish woman, and honestly I can't even remember her name. But she was actually blonde, and then I was dark-headed for North Americans, but they called me a rubia, which is a kind of a blonde thing. Yeah, kind of a brownish blonde. And I was quite tall compared to most Chilenos. They are very, very short-statured sort of people. So I would literally get and it was also in 1975, so my heels were this tall. My stacks were 2 inches tall, and my heels were 4 inches tall. And so I kind of towered above the local folk.
Yes,
quite a bit. I guess those heels probably put me at 5'9" or something. So
taller than maybe most of the men.
Yeah,
that are there.
taller than a lot of the men, certainly on eye level with the rest of them. So that was kind of fun. And I was what my husband would call a young slimmy, so at the time. So it was fun. I definitely enjoyed that year, and I learned a lot about myself, and I just realized that you can't, and that really was the time when I realized that you just can't worry about what other people think about you, because they're really not thinking about you. They're concerned about what they're doing, and you just should do what you want to do. They don't see you as anything other than how they're going to see you, so just be yourself regardless. And it has been a real boon for my life to have learned that early.
What do you suspect was the biggest culture shock from Conway, Arkansas, middle of the United States, middle south, to Chile? Was it Santiago? Were you close to the middle?
I was. I spent 6 months in San Fernando, which is south of Santiago, and then I spent the rest of the time in Santiago, or suburbs of Santiago. Biggest culture shock. Gosh. Honestly, there really didn't seem to be that much culture shock to me. They ate different kinds of food. I mean, I'd never eaten cow's stomach, and I'd never eaten sea anemone, because of course Chile has a great seafood culture for food, but I'd never eaten a lot of seafood. So I guess maybe the food was the strangest thing. I was surprised at the schools. If you didn't go to a private school, you didn't have a very good education. The private schools were quite expensive, but that's where you got the best education. And the public schools literally had no books, nothing. I remember the teacher was literally doing her lessons from the notes and the notebooks that she had used and taken herself in college. And so it was a very non-reading educational situation. So for me, it was really strange, because I had been a reader all my life. So that was probably the hardest thing, was for me to figure out what to do. Because I didn't have an e-reader or a Kindle, so I had no digital books. So I didn't have a lot of books to read.
It's 1975.
Yeah, it's 1975, and so I played a lot of cards.
All right, so is cards a thing? Because I'm thinking dominoes down south.
Yeah, no, a lot of card games. I didn't see that much dominoes, but then maybe I just didn't know that they were around. But so really not a lot of cultural differences. I lived with a wonderful family. All of the families I lived with were truly, wonderful people and had large families, so I was used to that, and they just, hugged me right in. And
did you end up at the private or the public school on that?
I ended up at both were the public schools. My family had sent their students to public school. I suspect because the daughter had been suspended perhaps from the private schools, but at any rate that was the dichotomy that I saw. And then they had like a schedule of classes that was different. So like we went from 8 o'clock in the morning to like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were done. And then they had a set of students that would go from like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to like 7 at night.
Because there were too many kids?
I don't really know. I don't know if it was for parents who worked or if it was too many students to fit in the building. I'm not really sure what the practicality of it all was, but I thought it was very intriguing to have just literally 5 hours of classes, no breaks, so to speak. Then you go home and you're done. And then there's another set that maybe they worked in the day. Maybe those students had to work in the farms or whatever. And then they would come in from like after siesta at 3.
That's what I was going to ask about the siesta.
We definitely had
if it was siesta culture.
Yeah, it was a siesta
maybe that
culture.
Was part of it?
And so I guess the students who maybe were empleados, who were employed.
Sure.
Because there was youth employment, or maybe their parents couldn't bring them that early or whatever. They would come from like 3 to 7 or 3 to 8, and then they would be out of school. So they had different times that you could attend school. And then the
Is there a specific time for siesta?
There it was literally from like 12 until 3, and it was very definitely a siesta culture.
And the whole place locked down?
The whole town shut down. They rolled those little metal, doors down on their businesses and went home. And then they would open back up about 3 o'clock and be open till 7 or 8.
Okay, now that's a big culture shock.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know. I guess it's because I just want to know everything and I want to experience everything. So I just never let anything deter me from accepting what was going on. I'm just very adaptable that way, and I always have been. Another one of my blessings.
So what did you do from 12 to 3, Teresa Roebuck?
We ate delicious food. Oh my God. We ate so much good food all the time. It was crazy good. Like we would have onces, which is 11 o'clock tea, not on school days, but on like weekends.
Who's serving the food?
We had a maid. The family I lived with had a maid, and she did the cooking and she served the food. The mother worked outside of the home, which was unusual.
Oh.
But she was in politics, and so she had a political office that she went to. And then the father was a rancher, but they all lived in town. And my first family, that's the family I remember the most, was the first family I lived with.
You say there was
the longest.
A lot of kids in that one?
Yeah, there were 3 boys and a girl. And
were you bunking in with any of the kids?
I was bunking with the girl. Yeah, shared the room with the daughter, and the house was a townhouse situation, which I'd never really seen before. So the houses were connected. So you go in this little gate, and there's a very small yard in the front, and you walk up the steps to the front door, and then in the hallway, stairs going up to the left. All the family bedrooms were up there, and then the dining room and the living room and the kitchen were on this first level, and the actual formal living room, which hardly anybody ever used, and then the maid quarters were downstairs.
Whoa!
And she lived in the house, and she had a son, and who lived there too. He was about 3. And then you went through the kitchen or through the patio from the living room, and then they had a nice backyard. So they were a pretty well-to-do family. Yeah, they were a pretty well-to-do family. They owned a car, which is a real sign of affluence in South America to have a car. And they were just as sweet as they could be.
Now, when you're exchanging to them, is there another child exchanging to your family?
No, it isn't a literal exchange like that. Their daughter had been an exchange student the year before, and she had gone to California. So she spoke English pretty well, and that's why they felt confident enough to accept a student. And so we muddled along with her English and my bad Spanish until my Spanish got better. And and it was a great time. But I had to stay in a school setting, and so when I graduated, quote, from the high school,
Right.
I had to continue studying somewhere, so I had to leave and go to another family, and that's when I started college in Santiago.
All right.
And I went
What was
to
your first study?
La Universidad Técnica del Estado.
Oh,
and
say that again.
Yeah.
Clean.
La Universidad Técnica del Estado de Chile. And
What does that mean?
Because
I think that's the number 4 at that Mexican restaurant I just went to.
It means the Technical University of Chile, of the Technical University of the state, and the state, of course, is Chile. And
There is a house.
I took Spanish pedagogy classes, pedagogía they called it, which was to learn to be a Spanish teacher, which is eventually what I became. So that worked out pretty well.
Spanish teacher. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you finish out in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else interesting happened down there in South America?
Well, I did happen to take pictures of the wrong building and get escorted into a building by soldiers with machine guns.
Ooh, tell me everything.
That was one of my adventures in Chile. It was about the time we were getting ready to leave. And leave the country to come home, and we had to, because we were going to travel through Argentina, and Argentina had been having so much trouble. We had to get visas to travel through Argentina to pick up the other students who had ended up down there, and then or over there, and then go home. So the airlines required a visa to enter the country for whatever reason. So I was supposed to meet some friends of mine at this building, and the representative of the Youth for Understanding organization. We were going to meet outside whatever government building it was to get my visa. Mm-hmm. And I was just taking pictures of my friends to say goodbye, and I'd never been in that part of town before. And so we were just snapping pictures of different, wherever we were. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there taking a picture of them, and I get this tap on my shoulder, and I'm looking at my friends, and their faces are just like, their eyes are real big and their mouths dropped open, and I get this tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's a soldier in full uniform with a machine gun in his hand, and he says, "You have to come with me."
In English or Spanish?
No, in Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't speak the standard people, just like anywhere, they speak the language that they speak.
Give me the come with me.
Right.
In Spanish.
They didn't.
Go ahead.
How was he supposed to know I was an English speaker? I'm sorry.
Give me the. I want to get the full effect.
Yeah, venga conmigo usted. No, venga usted conmigo.
Yes.
Something like that. And so of course I'm going to go with him. He's got a gun. So I get marched into this building, and I get taken into this office. There's a gentleman sitting at the desk. It's a pretty bare looking room. Mm-hmm. There's a soldier guard at the door. There's the guard that's with me. And they start asking me who I am and what I'm doing, and all in Spanish, and I'm 18 years old and terrified. And the representative of the Youth for Understanding, apparently I had said that enough that they went and found him. So I was explaining we were supposed to be getting visas and this, that, and the other, and that he had gone in to get the visas, and I was just supposed to wait on him outside with my friends. Mm-hmm. Well, eventually they found him, and he came in and explained the situation and who I was, and that everything was cool, whatever, copacetic, I don't know. And but they did take my camera.
Oh.
And they stripped. It was back when there was film in cameras. And so
What's film, Mommy?
Yeah, really. And I cried hard enough that they gave me back my camera, but they did take that whole roll of film and strip it out of the camera and keep it and sent me on my way with a stern warning not to take any more pictures of government buildings.
Well, I'm imagining this pretty 18-year-old girl walking into this room, and you say the soldier was over there, and there was a man, and this is movies. I'm thinking of a man that's sitting behind a table with the cigarette just lit and smoke rising. But harsh light coming down from the ceiling.
You are absolutely correct. I mean,
they set the stage.
It was totally cliche in the way that it looked and felt. Everybody in Chile at that time, of course, practically everybody in the world still smoked, and so lots of smoking happening.
Well, doctors recommended it.
Yeah. The gentleman from Youth for Understanding, they became very, volatile because it is a South American country. They do have that Latin temperament, and they were arguing back and forth and yelling and pointing, and I was following about one word and 3 or 4 at this point, because once they really started going, it was beyond what I knew. And but eventually, we were allowed to leave. Because literally, you're talking. Do you remember that movie from 1975 called Missing with Sissy Spacek, where her husband disappeared in Chile? Yeah, we're talking that kind of scenario. That's exactly the kind of thing.
You lived it.
Yeah, I lived it, and so and I didn't even realize, at how much possibility of danger there might have been, in that situation. But the guy from Youth for Understanding really went to bat for me, and he made sure that, they let me go and that they were understood. I mean, there were some phone calls exchanged with the embassy. The Youth for Understanding guy told him to call the U.S. Embassy because, you check in when you go to a different country and you let them know that you're in the country and that sort of thing. So they knew, yes, I was there and that I was an exchange student. But it was quite the, movie sort of scenario, absolutely.
Yeah, I think interrogation rooms are probably set up that way to inflict
it was quite
an emotion.
Intriguing. So I didn't really talk about that a whole lot to my parents at the time, but it's always been a strong memory.
Well, you say it would have taken 3 weeks for them to get the message, right?
True. Well, the family I was living with then had they let me use the telephone once a
fancy.
month. Yeah. Well, it's an expensive
That's only
call
about
back
$8
then.
a minute.
Yeah, it was a very expensive call back then to call the U.S. So they had allowed me to call my mom and dad a couple of times.
All right.
But I didn't go into details on that particular adventure, and I came home soon after that. So it was a lot of fun.
When did your mom and dad find out about the adventures in Chile, or at least this particular one?
The G-rated ones, I told them all about it, just any time. But I left the more teenage-oriented, possibly illegal activity to just my
allegedly. I have to say that. I have to say that so that way you don't get in trouble. I don't know what statute of limitations are, or extradition laws.
No, I didn't do anything illegal per se. Just who knows, So at any rate, but that was a great learning experience, and again, for parents out there with young people, or grandparents even, I would highly recommend an exchange program.
You answer the questions before I ask them.
Sorry.
No, that's fantastic.
That's kind of what I do.
No, that's what I like.
I like to promote things that I know are awesome and good for you.
Be an exchange student.
I'm sorry?
Spain's a good place.
Spain was a good place, absolutely.
Who went to Spain?
Our daughter, the youngest.
Yes.
That's where she learned her Spanish.
Yes.
Or that's where she became fluent.
And then now she's a linguist in the Army?
Air Force. Yeah.
Air Force.
Yeah.
My brother was Navy, and he said if he ever re-upped, he'd go to the Air Force because they treat you better. So there's a little tip from
I
baby.
always told her and her older sister, if you go in the military, make sure it's the Navy or the Air Force. They're the office workers. The Marine and the Army are the factory workers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my brother's in the Navy 6 years. He never went on a boat.
I didn't either. Pendleton, California.
Orlando, Florida.
Very
There's
funny.
not even an ocean near the place.
Yeah.
I paid a cab to take me to one. They wouldn't let me on. I got to see it.
Yeah.
Got to see it. That's fantastic. All right, Teresa Roebuck, Adventures in Chile. So far, so good. Still hanging out in your living room in Conway, Arkansas. Let's get home from Chile.
Okay. Came home from Chile. Had gained a lot of weight. It was delicious food, but managed to work it off over the summer. Just, being a typical girl, I didn't want to be overweight.
How'd you lose the weight? We'll get some weight loss tips from Teresa Roebuck.
God, if I could remember, I wouldn't weigh what I weigh now. I guarantee you, if I could figure it out.
Back then I was a runner, and I'm not much of a runner.
Yeah.
I clip, clop, but that's the only thing that tears the weight off of me. I need to run.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll leave my car here and I'll run back home.
No, I am trying to lose weight now. I'm way more than I want to, and way more than is healthy. So I'm trying to figure out a consistently doable way to lose weight and then maintain it for the rest of my life, because I need to. It's important.
Oh, I went to Gillespie's boxing gym last Friday, and I hit a heavy bag, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's here in Conway, Arkansas.
Okay.
Shout out to Gillespie's Boxing.
Gillespie's, okay.
And so, Teresa Roebuck, you make it back. You lose a lot of the weight or most of the weight from Chile over the summer, and then what do?
I start college in the fall at Hendrix College.
75, 76?
The fall of 75.
75.
So I went to Hendrix College. Let's see. I guess right before I came home, I left for Chile in June, and I came home from Chile in August of 75. So sometime during August of 75, I took what were then called the comp test. And I don't remember the actual name of them. But it was your college entrance exam kind of thing. And I took the ACT or whatever you do, and then I took something about getting college credit. Well, at any rate, I got some college credit for whatever.
Just for taking a test?
For knowing whatever the test wanted me to know.
Oh, very good.
So I managed to...
Smarty pants?
CLEP, that's what they're called.
Oh,
CLEP.
you CLEP test,
I
yes,
CLEP
okay.
tested, and back then, your CLEP test could be used towards your graduation requirements. So I actually CLEP'd out of my entire freshman year of college.
Good for you.
I CLEP'd out of all my science and math requirements, and I CLEP'd out of all of my... what was the other one? Well, I don't know. I CLEP'd out of like 9 hours, which at Hendrix you only took 9 hours a year.
Yes.
So that was fun. I mean, I saved my parents a ton of money because Hendrix is not cheap.
Yeah, reading is good, boys and girls.
I was on scholarships as much as I had been able to get for scholarships, and then I CLEP'd out. So I really only went to Hendrix for 3 years. But my freshman year was 1975, and back then Hendrix was on a trimester system, so you took 3 courses per term 3 times a year, and each course was worth 1 credit. So I had CLEP'd out of enough to not have to do at least a whole year of school.
Yes.
And I think they still do. My oldest daughter went to Hendrix back when, and they still have a fairly good orientation system for incoming freshmen. And I lived on campus. I didn't want to live at home anymore because I'd already been away, and so it was just expected, that okay, I've kind of left the nest. So I lived on campus, and you had this great orientation session. And when you come to Hendrix and you go in through that orientation, you just become so close to your incoming class, because it's the whole class, and you do stuff together for like 2 weeks, and you just get to really know each other, and you really bond together. So you have like a class all the way through your time at Hendrix. So I was in the class of 75. Even though I didn't graduate with that class, I always have stayed pretty close to quite a few people that I met at Hendrix, and I loved going to Hendrix. It's a great school, and I was there at a great time. Learned lots of great stuff, and got my first degree in the humanities. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been in Spanish, but
no,
you answered that question.
As it turns out, I took too many. I took so many foreign language classes that I couldn't count them all in the foreign language queue. My emphasis was in foreign languages and theater arts. And so I ended up just getting a degree. The degree was considered the humanities as opposed to a single section of it. So
Theater arts. Were you an actress too?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Let's go there.
Well, I never acted a whole lot. I was in a couple of plays. I really preferred doing the makeup and the costumes to being on stage. I still have a huge affinity for vintage clothing and makeup, or skincare at any rate.
Yes.
But that was just a ton of fun. I loved being a Hendrix student. It was just, I lived in the dorm, enjoyed the people I met, got a great education, world-class education if you ask me, and have used that experience and that discipline to learn my whole life.
Now, even though your parents lived blocks away, probably.
Oh yeah,
you still got the full college experience of living in the dorms.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed not being I had felt that taste of independence, and I really didn't particularly want to go back to living in my parents' home. And so it was nice to be an independent college student, even if it was in a dorm situation.
Right.
But back then, the dorms were fairly open. You know, it was the 70s, and we didn't have. We had one. We were the first year, I think, that had co-ed dorm. They had like different floors in Couch Hall. But I lived in a traditional, one of the most traditional dorms at Hendricks, Galloway, for the first year I was there, and my cousin lived across the hall, which was great.
It's all girls?
Yeah,
Okay.
that dorm is all girls, and
Well protected, everybody's...
Yeah, we had our keys, and just tons of fun. But we had it was just a great situation. We'd have dinner together and breakfast together and lunch together. You just became a real community, the dorm and the people that you went to school with and the people in your classes. And I met my best friend there in, not my freshman year, but the year after, I think, my sophomore year. I met my best friend, and we've been best friends pretty much ever since.
Shout outs.
Her name is Jo Claire Dodson, and she owns the art school downtown in Conway. She's been teaching private art instruction here in Conway for 17 years.
Art is good.
Art is good, and she's an excellent teacher.
Did she teach any of your kids?
Both of them, absolutely.
She taught the two of them.
Absolutely.
See how it all comes full circle.
A lot of Mariah's techniques, I definitely can attest that Jo Claire helped her learn. The ways to do things. She took state. Yeah, Sandra Clear had art at the art center in Arkansas, Little Rock. That was chosen to travel the state. Yeah, so yeah, definitely artistic daughters and smart girls, and I owe a lot of that. The instruction, obviously, the talent, it comes from God, but Jo Claire definitely helped them to learn how to harness that talent. She's an excellent art instructor, and I would highly recommend art for anyone it builds, again, it creates a better brain.
Yes.
Music, art, languages, reading, all of those are things that students, young people need to do to have better brains and to be able to make better decisions and to think more clearly. Look, he's laughing at me.
So it's not just the 3 R's then, Teresa Roebuck?
In my opinion, there's nothing that can be a classical liberal arts education. That's learning how to think, learning how to communicate, and learning, how to learn. And to continue to do it.
Pretty liberal in my education.
Yeah,
I get to chit chat with people.
Absolutely.
I started this podcast because people are in their phones and they're not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And now I'm talking to Teresa Roebuck.
And Teresa likes to talk. So.
Well, good.
That is not a problem. Yeah, I've never been one to shirk the task of talking with folks. It was my profession for years.
Okay.
So
let's go there.
All right.
After college, Hendricks, you graduated, and then what did you do?
I graduated from Hendricks, got married the next week.
Next week?
Yeah, I graduated on the 6th and got married on the 12th.
Okay.
I think that's right. It's been a long time. Yeah. Well, I won't say it was a mistake. I definitely got Mariah out of it. So.
Yes.
I married. I took German at Hendricks, and I met the German professor's son, and he and I fell in love, and we were married right after graduation.
Right.
And we were together. We dated for 3 years before we got married, and then we were married for 9 years. So it wasn't like a, total write-off. But people change and grow apart, and that's what happened. He wanted to become a doctor, and he had started working as an EMT, and that's when he decided he wanted to become a doctor. And our paths just were not compatible any longer. And so we divorced in 86, I think. 85 or 86. No, that's not right. Dad died in 86. So it must have been 88. We divorced right after my father died.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it takes something like that to really shake you up, to realize that you're not where you need to be, you're not where you want to be.
Well, it's sad when things end, but sometimes they need to end.
And he remarried soon after, and they've been together ever since. And so that makes me know that it wasn't a mistake. And of course, I met Bruce eventually. I was a single mom for 8 years with Mariah, the oldest. So, we definitely had our share of interesting times. But all in all, I believe it worked out as it's supposed to have had done.
Being a single mom is a very special thing, and when trying to date a single mom, it's not very casual. It's something that you have to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with trying to go into a new relationship. So
it takes a certain kind of man to see a single mom and say, you know what, I'm able to take that responsibility. And
he's a trooper.
Go Bruce. Bruce. All right. So what kind of work were you doing while you were?
So after I graduated, I worked. Let's see. I was an assistant store manager for a shoe store for a while here in town. I worked at the county library for a while.
Books, reading.
Yes, books and reading. Loved working at the library. Would not have left.
Is that this one on Tyler?
No, it was still the one down where it was at the courthouse. The
Okay.
big, tall green building that's like the county museum.
That was a library?
That was the library when I worked there.
I just got here in 2009,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm still learning about
Not
Conway,
from
Arkansas
around here,
from you.
That building at the courthouse area used to be the library. It was quite beautiful. I just loved that building. And I loved the library. And I worked there for a couple of years. And I would not have left except at the time, my husband, Brad, his family was from Montana. And he wanted to go and live in Montana and see what Montana was like and kind of get out away from the Conway area. He kind of had that romantic idea that Montana would be, the Wild West, and and he wanted to go and work in a silver mine and things like that. So we packed up, and this was before our daughter was born, so we packed up and moved to Montana, and that's when I left the library. I probably would not have left it had not that occurred. I really like working in libraries.
Tell me about Montana.
Oh, it was
Is it 3
crazy.
foot of snow now? 3 foot of snow.
It was pretty bad, in my opinion. We went to live with his uncle, and honestly, that was just my experience. I don't want to badmouth anyone, but to me,
all my precious listeners in Montana, wonderful state,
Wonderful
wide open
state,
spaces.
Beautiful state. I loved being there, but honest to goodness, it seemed like all anybody wanted to talk about was kids, cattle, or cooking. And I didn't do any of that at the time. So, I felt very isolated. And it turns out there wasn't work in the mines after all. And we lived in a little town called Pony that had a laundromat, grocery store combined, and a post office. No, it was a gas station bar combined, and a laundromat, post office combined, and that was it. I mean, literally, that was it for miles and miles and miles.
Oh, the nightlife.
Yeah, it was something. So
how long did that last?
We lasted right around 4, maybe 4.5 months before we came back to Arkansas.
Yeah, that's enough of this.
Yeah. So we didn't,
back to Conway.
So
Arkansas.
we actually kind of missed the worst of the weather.
Okay.
We got there like in early September, I'm thinking, and left right around December.
Was everything still packed up in boxes at the time?
No, we had actually moved into a trailer that we'd rented, and we were ready to try to make a go of it, but he just couldn't find any work, and he didn't want me to work at the time, so I was like, whatever,
Yeah.
And so it didn't happen. We didn't stay.
All
But
right.
it was a beautiful country. Gosh, I used to remember the air would be so cold, and I'm not a fan of cold,
Sure.
but the air would be so cold that whatever moisture there was in the air would crystallize, and so literally the air would sparkle. It was so beautiful in the early mornings. Sun, the sun would hit the moisture in the air, and it would have frozen, and it would just be like sparkles all in the air. Very magical looking. I really enjoyed lots of aspects of the beauty of it, for sure.
Visit Montana. There you
Montana.
go.
It is gorgeous. But like I said,
Not for you.
but not for me.
Let's get back to Conway, Arkansas.
So we came back to Conway, and I did various things. I worked at the log cabin for a while.
Oh,
I worked at
what's Log Cabin?
Log Cabin Democrat. It was the newspaper at the
okay.
time. Yeah, I worked there
What did
for
you
a
do?
while. I took ads over the phone. I was a front office just typed in people's classified ads for them.
What was the most interesting ad?
Oh, I
Anything
couldn't
stick out of your
begin
mind?
to imagine. Unfortunately, I was working there when Brad and I divorced, so not great memories of there being there.
Okay.
I worked at. I
know
worked
a
for my
lady,
mom.
Dolores Haynes used to work there.
That was after. I didn't work at Hastings when I was married to Brad. I worked at Hastings after. I just did a lot of, not part-time. Well, I got pregnant with Mariah. That's what it was. That's why I didn't have a job history.
Right.
I was pretty much determined to stay home with Mariah. So I did part-time jobs. I did phone call.
Yes.
Phone. Where they set up appointments by phone. I was a phone call center person. I did that part-time after she was born. But I stayed home with her pretty much until, till the divorce. Then I had to go to work.
Well, call me traditional, but I like that. If at least one parent could stay home with the child, it's so beneficial for them.
It is. And you end up saving a lot of money in the long run. But I did it because to me it was important to be there for her. I was very, very educated about nutrition and being pregnant and doing the right things, and then I learned and educated myself about child care and educating a small child and helping them develop well.
A lot of Dr. Spock or what? What was
I wouldn't say it was Dr. Spock. Well, a lot of it, of course, was just wisdom from my own mom. She was a great mom, and so she helped me out tremendously all the time. She and I were constant companions throughout that time, and then, of course, after the divorce, even more so. And then my dad passed in '86.
Yeah.
Blew my mom just up. She just was in terrible straits.
What happened?
So, he just had a heart attack, and he was 60. He was only 60 when he passed, and they'd been married 38 years. So, it was just she just couldn't hardly handle it. So, I helped her in the bookstore for months at a time. She would take off and just not feel like working. Very depressed. So I would run the bookstore. That's probably what I did for quite a long time, at least a year off and on, helping her out with that.
Were you able to have the baby with you?
Oh yeah. It was just a tiny little hole in the wall bookstore. So Mariah would come with me in the baby rocker thing.
I'm glad she had you, Teresa Roebuck. Both of them, your mom and your baby.
And I'm glad I had her, because then after my dad passed, not quite a full year later, the divorce was final. And so eventually Mom and I moved in together. At first, not so much. At first we had separate homes, but eventually we ended up moving in together because it just made sense. She was alone. I was alone with the baby. My younger brother lived with us even for a couple of months here and there when he was in transition. So it worked out well for all of us. And then
that's right, people.
Yeah.
You stay with your family.
Family is important.
Family's so important.
That's right.
They're probably the ones that'll back you up the most, when all else fails.
Well, that's the way, Mariah and my mom and Bruce and I we're very family oriented. Bruce helped take. Yeah. Bruce helped take care of his mom and his sisters when they were ill, and had your dad. So we've all been very family. It's just, for us, it's the thing to do. You just take care of your family. As he says, it's God, and then your family, and then everybody else. Yes. In his case, for school was, so what we told Sandra Claire when she was in school, that was her third responsibility, was to be in school and to do well in school and to learn.
Oh, and you keep your family in pictures.
I do. I have lots of pictures of my family. I'm very.
We lost a lot with our artwork. The walls were all family until we started bringing in art.
Is all the artwork Mariah's?
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because she's
we
good.
We don't have that much.
I see that one.
Mariah.
Before you leave, I'm going to have you work the one behind you.
All right.
Yeah.
You need to walk across the room and look at it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. Yeah.
So Mariah only started doing allowing people to see her artwork a couple of years ago. So we don't have that many pieces of her work available yet, but that's definitely changing. She's finally allowing people to see it and beginning to put it out there and hope for some representation and find some galleries and things like that. So
good. There's a few galleries here in town. I'd like to.
She did photography for a while. In her 20s, and then this last couple of years she's turned to pen and ink and then paint, and she mixes her own colors and does a lot of experimental things, and she's just really amazing. It's awesome to watch her. She creates constantly, it seems like.
Yeah.
So, but this art, or these other art, came about because
here.
Bruce and I fell in love with going on cruises, and on the cruises we started going to the art auctions on the cruises, and we ended up realizing that, wow, we just really like having this art, and so we would purchase it on the ships, and they would ship it to us, and it just kind of became sort of a thing. We both have favorite artists. One of my favorite is Linda LeKink. Hers are the ones up on this wall mainly, the lady and the different ladies. And then his is Dominic Pangborn. And then we recently discovered these little ones here that have all the strange absurdisms, they call them. And his name is Cheval. Like a pumpkin over here that looks like Cinderella coming out of a pumpkin, so the coach is like a pumpkin, and I just
got Peter Max.
Yeah, we have a Peter Max print, a real nice one.
Well, you say you read some fantasy as well, and history and fantasy.
I'm not
fantastic.
I like things to be, what is that? Not whimsical. Really mystical, but whimsical and just sort of fantastical. I like the idea of the fantasy-oriented. Not that I'm not well-grounded in reality. I think that's probably part of the reason I like fantasy so much is because I am so steady and stable and have had so much responsibility and done so many things, and have had to be responsible and own businesses and run businesses and train people and that sort of thing. So I'm very, rooted and grounded in reality so that my enjoyment and entertainment comes from other than that.
Yes. Well, all right. Entertainment. What do you do for fun? Here we are. We're kind of in the 90s, I guess, the early 90s, and you're working in the bookstore with your mama. And you're living the single mama life, though.
Yeah, single mom.
How do you keep yourself entertained at that point?
Oh, I do a lot of thrifting. I still do a lot of thrifting. But back then I especially enjoyed. I'd go to thrift stores, and I had started collecting vintage clothing and vintage household things like lingerie and linens and knickknacks. So I have a rather large collection of vintage clothing. Not one, not two, but 3 10 by 13 storerooms full of vintage clothing.
Okay.
And stuff in our
here
backyard.
On the premises?
Yeah,
okay.
It's in the backyard.
Good. You're not paying somebody for storage.
No, I did for a long time, and we finally were able to buy these storage units. It made more sense to buy our own and have them set up. But there's still quite a bit still in there. I've sold things over the years, and I've earned a good income selling things over the years. I sold on eBay for 6 or 7 years. From the time we first got cable catalogs. Yeah.
Sears and Roebuck, no relation.
No relation, but
sadly.
They have, sadly. I don't know, they're bankrupt now too.
I guess, yes. I think I worked for their photo studio.
Vintage clothing. I opened up a vintage clothing store here in town for a while.
Was this? 90s?
Yeah, no. 2005, 2004.
Okay. So all through the 90s you worked for the bookstore then?
All through the 90s, I worked either at the bookstore. Well, let's see, I worked at the UCA library for a while. I worked at the bookstore. After the divorce, I worked for Hastings, and I worked for them for a couple of years.
Books again.
And and I moved from assistant manager to Conway to the store manager in Benton. So Mariah and I moved to Benton for a couple of years, and I ran the store there. And then I decided I wanted to go back to school. And I came back to Conway and lived with my mom and went to graduate school.
What you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, something like that. And studied, what are you laughing about? Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And
All right.
Went to graduate school, working on my master's in counseling psychology. I was going to be a practicing psychologist. I was going to be a counselor, and met him the summer of the last year I was in school.
How do you meet Bruce?
We were at our 20-year high school reunion.
Yes.
That's the one.
Yes.
And he had come back. He had moved back to Arkansas to help his mom because his mom had gotten sick, and he came to live with her and help her out. And then we met at our reunion, or re-met at our reunion, and the rest
96.
is history. Yeah.
95.
95.
95.
Yeah. Got married in 95, had Claire in 96.
Well, no. Who talked to who first at the reunion? How did it? Yeah, we've discussed that you've met at the reunion, but who got the nerve?
I was on crutches and she asked me if I needed
Oh, what a nice lady.
He had one of his many, at the time, I realized later, one of his many surgeries, and he was in a walking boot or on crutches, and he had gotten to the first party or meeting that we had because it was at the high school, and he lived right behind the high school, so he had just hobbled over on his crutches, as far as I know. But we started chatting, and we just continued to chat back and forth. But they were going to have a party after the high school section where we toured the high school at the country club, which was quite a way out. And so I just asked him if he needed to ride out to the party. So he rode with me out to the party, and then we chit-chatted all throughout the party, back and forth. That was a Friday. And then on Saturday, there was a family picnic, and I asked him if he was planning on going, because I was going to go with Mariah, because everybody gets to see everybody's kids, there and all that. 25-something years ago now, almost. So I asked him, did he need another ride? Did he need a ride? And he said, sure. So Mariah and I picked him up, and we went out to the river and had a big picnic with everybody and their kids, and we were sitting under the, what do you call those? The pavilion, yeah, at picnic tables. And he was on the other side talking to somebody, and I was sitting at a table. And I looked up, and he was looking at me. And then from that point, the story sort of goes to him.
Okay.
So I look up, and he's looking at me, and he says,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
I had always prayed that God put on the earth for me was in front of me to slap me so I wouldn't screw it up. I'd gone dates, come back, pray, never happened, never been married, decided I was going to be a bachelor forever, didn't want kids. And I looked over there and was slapped and said, I'm going to marry her. And then we just went from there. I just knew it.
Love is blossoming.
Love is blossoming.
So, had you been married before, Bruce? Bachelor man, your whole life.
Yeah.
Confirmed bachelor.
38.
Wow. Yeah, usually by 30, people are starting to settle down, figure out what they want to be with their life, get a family. 38, you held out an extra 8 years.
Yeah.
And then you found this little filly. Oh, good. And then 96, you're married. 95.
95, yeah.
95, you're married.
That was in June.
Whirlwind.
That was in the middle of June.
23rd, October 13th.
And then we got married on October the 13th that same year. And in between, he was so sweet. Still during the reunion, he asked me if he could ask me out, which I thought was sweet. And so we went out.
What's first date?
We went to a place to eat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is where we ended up having our wedding. But we started dating, and Mariah was staying with her dad for a lot of that summer. He had her during the summers, and so Bruce and I, became very well acquainted, and we hung out and stayed together, and realized that this was really special. And I was just, after being a single mom for 8 years, he was very attentive, and he was very kind. He treats me still like a queen, and he's just the best there is. And so I began to realize I was falling in love. He says he was smitten from the get-go, but I definitely took a little bit of time, and I began falling in love with him, which is when I got so frightened that I was falling in love with someone that I knew had a history of, drug abuse and drug use and such what. And so I was very concerned and had that on-point direct message. It's not him you have to trust, it's me.
And I was starting college that fall.
And he had gone in and gotten rehabilitation provided him with a scholarship to go back to college. And so, anyway, we agreed that at first we weren't even going to bother about getting married. It was like, we don't care one way or the other. We know we're going to be together. We know we've committed to each other. Mm-hmm. But then I began to thinking, well, we are a small southern town. I don't want any of Mariah's friends to ever, or their parents to ever go, oh, you can't go play at her house because her mom's living in sin with some, So we decided we would go ahead and make it legal, and we got married.
Since we're in the notch of the Bible Belt.
That's right. Since we're in the notch of the Bible Belt, and it would make lots of people happier than it mattered to us, we would go ahead and marry. So we planned this crazy masquerade party wedding and had a ton of fun.
Yes.
And got married. My brother performed the ceremony. He's a minister.
Okay.
And he performed the ceremony in his nice, beautiful Sunday suit. And we were both in our costumes, and as was everybody else. And then after the ceremony, when we were legally wed, he changed into his magician's costume and did magic tricks.
Hat?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
This is me imagining.
No, you're absolutely right. Matter of fact, I just found these again the other day.
And she reaches her right hand over, and once again, she's got stuff to look at.
Refound these. I was going to post them next month for. To celebrate our anniversary, but this was the wedding party.
Teresa Roebuck got the Mardi Gras pictures out from her wedding. And there he...
That's my brother.
This is me imagining her brother, and he's got the cone hat, purple robe.
You got it.
Paper.
Perfect magician outfit right there. And you'll be posting those on your Facebook?
I have them on my Facebook page.
Well, good.
Celebrate
Share them
our
with everybody.
24th anniversary.
24.
Yeah. So we had a great fun wedding. And then he started to school, and I realized that, well, let's see, we were talking, and I had said something about, gosh, I wish we'd met sooner. I would have loved to have a child, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you'd like to have a kid? And I'm like, yeah, I always wanted more than one. And he was like, well, let's give it a shot. So we decided we'd try to have a baby, and sure enough, it wasn't any time after I got off birth control. He was, we were parents, and his mother is so sweet. She's a very down-to-earth kind of woman.
Little frail woman, real healthy. Mm-hmm. I told her, me and Teresa are going to try to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
This little frail woman looks up at me and says, son, you've done so many drugs, don't you think you'll have sinkers instead of swimmers?
Ouch. So, reality check.
Yeah.
One day, I'd go watch wrestling with her on Saturday and it's all right in her house. And I was walking around, I just said, they swim, and I kept walking. And it took her about 10 minutes, it sucked in, and she started screaming, you're going to have a baby.
Oh, winner.
Yeah, so we discovered we were pregnant, and Sandra Claire was born a year later. In this house, that's right. I had
Sandra at this house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that room in there, which is quite a mess now. But at the time, it was our bedroom.
I'm sure it was a mess then. Having
really.
a baby in there.
Yeah, not too bad. But yeah, I had always wanted to have a home birth.
Okay. Tell me about that. Tell me everything.
Everybody does. Everybody wants to know.
Was it midwifing?
The first question most people ask is, on purpose? You had her at home on purpose?
Right.
Yes, I had her at home on purpose.
I
planned for it.
Her graduation.
Oh, yeah. I was 9 months pregnant when I graduated with my master's at UCA.
Yeah.
And I went to graduation, and luckily they called the master's candidates first. And I'm in the black gown, and my very pregnant, like as pregnant as you can get pretty much. And they called my name, and I got my degree, my certificate and all of that, shook hands, walked off down the stage, walked back in line to my chair.
How was you walking?
I was waddling. I was like a ship under sail.
Oh.
I walked back to where my seat was, and everybody else sit down, and I just kept on walking right out the door because I was not sitting through another 2 hours of graduation.
No, you had precious cargo hauling here.
But the rumor at that then started that somebody, had gone into labor at graduation and left. But it wasn't true. I just wasn't going to sit that long in those little metal folding chairs with a 9 months pregnant And she did turn out to be a 9-pound baby.
Oh, good baby.
Yeah. So, we had her at home. It was in June. It was hot. Had
So that was your plan the whole time?
The whole time, absolutely.
And now, when does the midwife start?
We started going to see her at about 3 or 4 months. You have classes, and you learn about childbirth, and you learn how to take care of yourself during your pregnancy and what to do, what kind of exercises are helpful to, provide good muscle tone and get your cartilage stretched and all that good stuff to have a child. So I did a lot of squatting exercises, needless to say, and because I wasn't young.
So is it called a midwife or a doula, or is that the same thing?
No, a doula is usually someone who helps after the baby is born.
Okay,
But I had an actual midwife.
Midwife.
Her name was
and
Deb.
Are they certified, I guess, in something?
Yeah, Deb Phillips in North Little Rock.
Oh.
They are certified. It's a lot more popular now than it was then. I was a pretty rare bird back in '96.
I think you're a pretty rare bird now, Miss Teresa Roebuck.
Nowadays, one of my cousin's daughter is a midwife up in Kansas City, and they have whole birthing centers now where it is just expected that you give a natural birth, and the midwife takes care of you and such. So she's delivered quite a few babies. We're real tickled for her. But yeah, I was pretty much determined that I was going to have this baby at home, because I'd wanted to have Mariah at home, and my husband at the time was like, no way. And of course, he eventually became a doctor, so he had a different mindset about it all than I did from the get-go.
So why do you think you thought like this? No, don't go to the hospital, have a birth at home.
Well, just like with my first child, I had educated myself on pregnancies and deliveries and this, that, and the other. And I mean, it only makes sense to me. People have been having children without doctor help or being in a hospital for, the entire human race history. So it couldn't be like unnatural or anything. So, yeah. So anyway, so I just decided that it was the thing to do. With Mariah, I ended up having Pitocin, which was to induce contractions.
Okay. Is that a pill or a shot?
It's a shot, yeah. Okay. And then it just the hospital birth for me was not a pleasant experience. I just didn't feel like it was very mother or child centered. It was very doctor centered, very this is a problem kind of thing centered, and I just didn't feel that way.
You feel like you were bothering the doctor and the nurses by being there?
They weren't as
loving, or
as loving and supportive as I might have liked. But I have very long labors. The two that I've had have both been over 20 hours.
Oh, okay.
And so
usually the
at
second
that point,
one just
well, not when they're 12 years apart.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but
it was my third delivery.
Oh, all right.
2 in the Navy.
Hey, winner.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I just didn't want to be in the hospital situation. To me, it just wasn't conducive to the kind of birth I wanted to have. I wanted to have no medication if possible, and I wanted to have it on, my frame where I was comfortable. I wanted to have my husband with me, and at that point, Mariah was old enough. She was there with me. My mom was, stayed in the house with us, and so it was just a great family experience.
Yes.
Mariah got to hold her sister like immediately. Bruce got to, like he said, catch her coming down, out, whatever. Claire, when she was growing up, we changed bedrooms so that Sandra Claire was in the room, her bedroom was the room that she was born in. Yeah. And she would go to all her, when her friends would come to spend the night, she would show them the spot on the rug. She goes, I was born right there.
Wow.
Sweet spot. That's
how
what she'd
great
call
is
it.
that? That had to be a very good family experience.
It was nice.
Everyone
nice.
just and Sandra had to have been imprinted on all these people. And she got it. So yes.
And the midwife situation was really good. She did a great job taking care of me, and I recovered fully, and it was great. And Claire didn't have a single drug in her ever for that entire experience.
She was real patient, waiting for us to hand the baby to her so she could do her things.
The midwife thing. Yeah, I held her first.
So,
and then
all right, it's Mariah and you say Sandra
Claire?
Okay, but you call her Claire and you call her Sandra sometimes.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Her full name is Sandra Claire Lorraine Sellers. Okay. And Sandra Claire is one name with 2 capital letters. But at home, we got into the habit of calling her Claire. Out in the world, we call her Sandra Claire. But occasionally, we just shorten it to Sandra or Sandra Claire, or just Claire. And so she gets called all of those things. But
Yes.
in her professional life, she is Sandra Clare. Full
Sandra
name.
Clare.
Full
All
name,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Or
getting the name
Lieutenant
straight.
Sellers is what she actually is. Ma'am or sir, ma'am.
Now,
But,
she started as second lieutenant. Where's she at now?
She's at Goodfellow Air Force Base.
Goodfellow.
Yeah.
And we're
In Texas.
Texas. Gotcha. Well, good. Okay, I was getting a little confused of which one was the Claire and which one was Sandra. And went, oh, they're the same person. All right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Sandra and Sandra Clare are the same person, but it's a long name, so it gets shortened like so many do.
No, Sandra
But
Claire
we
is
call
beautiful.
her Claire
Beautiful
Bear,
name.
Claire at home, and
All right. So Sandra Claire is born in that room, a
in
mere
that
20
room.
feet away,
That's right. Yep.
on the sweet spot.
Yep. And I stayed home with her and worked only part-time, did part-time work that I could control the hours, and took her with me most of the time. I worked for a good friend of mine was Father Tony McKay at the Catholic Church, and they at the time had a newsletter, a monthly newsletter that they sent out, and he hired me to do the newsletter because I was cognizant and knew how to do the electronic publishing software. So
Yeah.
I would make up the newspaper on the computer, and I could do that with her in my arms, And so
Working
he
for
hired
Log
me.
Cabin and,
Yeah,
and working for
he
the
did hire
library
me
and
to do that.
reading books.
And I just fell in love with anything to do with computers and technology. My older brother, who at the time was a captain in the Army, back in '98, bought all of us, my two other brothers and my sister and I, a top-of-the-line computer, and paid for a year of any training that we wanted to get to learn how to do the computer and any software that we wanted to learn.
year
So
was
I
this?
took him up on it in '98.
Top of the line. Let's see. You had 2 megs of RAM. You had 1 full gig of hard drive space. Ooh,
Maybe.
You'll never use that.
It was a Dell. I bought a Dell.
The-
No, it was an HP. I take that back.
I think I had one similar, and the modem was 28.8.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you
I
got
had bought
online.
my first computer. The first computer I bought was a Gateway computer.
Yes, that was
And,
big back then.
That was when I was a manager in Benton. So I had bought my first computer then, but I had used them at the UCA library when I worked at UCA library. I had begun to use them back when all the programs were still on the floppies, and you had to put the disk in to actually run the program. So I had gotten myself, conversant in the technologies that were available. I just fell in love with the computer stuff and the technology. So when he did that, I bought a big, beautiful HP desktop. But the real kicker for us, and the rest of them didn't have it, was that we had Conway Corp's cable internet. And he was living in Washington, D.C., working in the Pentagon, and we had better cable access, better internet access here in Conway.
In the U.S. that had that high-speed cable because they were making sure it didn't become a weapon.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that moved me here from Miami was Conway Corps.
Yeah.
That was what convinced me to leave my radio station, the Florida Keys, where my mom and grandma are. So
Yeah.
Keys Dan, that's where that
come
comes
to-
from. To come to Conway, Arkansas.
Conway, Arkansas. That's right. So we had this great computer internet hookup, and I learned everything I could. I learned, different software. I learned all about the operating systems. I knew how to, I changed out my speakers before. I'd added new, RAM cards. I mean, I just learned a lot about it because it was fascinating to me. But I also got involved with internet shopping. I started selling my clothing, my vintage clothing on
selling, okay.
eBay. Yeah, so I sold clothing and vintage things and books and whatever on eBay for years before anybody even knew about it. Yeah, I was even in on that whole Beanie Baby craze where people would.
Yes.
I would stand in line at Cracker Barrel and buy a dozen of them for $6 and come on to eBay and sell them for $30 to $120. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah, these
Tons
are the
of
early
fun.
days of
Yeah,
the interweb.
tons
and
of fun.
Good deal.
So I had a lot of fun doing that, and that's when I really ramped up the buying of the vintage clothing because I really anticipated that would be something I could do a long, long time. But that was one of the ways I supported us. Of course, Bruce has always been on disability. He's they officially provided his disability benefits in '95, right before we got married, and he's been on his disability ever since. So it's a fixed income. So I always, worked also, but I would try to do things where I didn't have a fixed income, where I could make more if we needed it or whatever. So I always did jobs like that. I would do freelance, worked for the Catholic Church, did the newsletter for them.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask what degree Bruce got.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Hang on.
What kind of schooling?
Well, I went to ULR, got a sign language interpreting degree. It's an AA, and went to BA in psychology. And my master's out of the University of Arkansas. Fayetteville is counseling.
So you ended up becoming the psychology counselor type thing?
No, I've not been able to get an interview.
Okay. All right. And then the sign language, did you ever get to use that at all?
Well, yeah, I went there because I was tired of the ABCs with a very close friend of mine. And then I learned they had classes that would teach me all the words, and if you get good enough, you can get paid for it. But I never wanted to do that. I just wanted to be able to speak to them. So if I ever became a vocational rehab counselor, my emphasis was vocational and deafness to help them.
Yeah. No, one of the things I saw, had to be recent in the news. There was the little sign language guy that's in the bottom of the corner there.
Yeah.
Well, they had a lady, and she got called out because she was doing some cockamamie, not real sign language, and they went, what is that lady doing down there? I always thought that was kind of a neat job, and I do karaoke shows sometimes, and when people sing My Heart Will Go On, I wish I knew how to sign that song, because I think it would add a little bonus if the DJ was sitting there going, My heart will go on, making the sign language wave out of it. Maybe I can hire you out, and you'll come by and do all the signing for me on a karaoke show when people are singing. It'll be sign language night.
I went over to the JLM, Julia Lee Moore, and talked to God Bless America to the students, and that was fun.
That is cool.
Yeah, that was when Claire was in school over there. He would go to their classes every year and teach them a couple of songs in sign language. I think you did the Pledge of Allegiance too. But anyway, so that was a lot of fun.
I was a volunteer over there because we decided me getting my degree in social work would never come close to making the money my wife could make. We wanted someone here with the child. As a bachelor, I had a spotless apartment.
Yeah.
As a single mother going to school and a job, she didn't keep her house that way, didn't have time. So it just fit. So I take care of everything that has to do with the house.
Well, like I said in the beginning of this, it's good that at least one parent, I didn't specify the mom or the dad, one parent stay home with the child. It's so beneficial for them.
Well, the first 3 years of her life, we both got to stay home.
Oh, it was awesome, yeah. I mean, we were poor, don't
No, you live simply. That's right. You live a little more simply.
It was so worth it. It was so worth it.
Have you had this house the whole time?
Yeah, I bought this house in 92 as a single mom.
Wow.
Making $800 a month. Over half my paycheck that I made as a graduate assistant at UCA went to the mortgage on this house, and the rest of it I provided for Mariah and I.
Totally worth it.
And then when he came along, bless his heart, he came in and he started getting his disability checks. Bruce has had 51 major surgeries over his life. So from the time we got married until now, you've had 20 something. So that's another reason that he never really got into the workforce, is because he's disabled. He's really, has serious difficulties, and when you end up having to have a surgery every 6 months to a year, it's kind of hard to keep a job.
You say it's the legs? Is that what it is?
Different things now.
Oh, okay.
Joints, it generally has to do with arthritis.
Gotcha.
I've had some cancer.
I've had some cancer. Oh, that's not a good sentence. Mm-mm. That's not a good sentence, no.
Well, it's better than he died from cancer.
Right.
So, survived some cancer. That's a good one.
I tell you, that little girl who made me a father for the first time.
Yes.
Was born 1 minute before Father's
Day.
Yeah, no, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't forgotten it, but I didn't.
Well, she wanted to make sure she could celebrate with you, that's for sure.
That was it.
Yeah. Oh, she has to smile every Father's Day because she's my gift.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. All right, Teresa Roebuck, we're moving into your life, man. This is so good.
You're going to have my entire life story.
Oh, I'm
this
stoked.
Is never
this is good. Everyone has a story. You have a story.
I do. I have lived
a
ridiculously blessed and gratifying and fun life. I've just had so many blessings and so many opportunities, and I've just done some fabulous things, and I'm just so grateful.
Yes.
Just so grateful.
Your vintage store. Now you had a brick and mortar store. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I had opened a brick and mortar store.
And when did you open that? And when did you end up closing it down?
I started teaching full time. Let's see. So where are we? Let's say, okay, I'm a single mom.
Yes.
We've met Bruce.
95.
We're
You're married. Yeah.
We're married. Stay home with Claire. Do odd jobs. A lot of computer learning for whatever reason, just because it's fun and I enjoyed it. Got a phone call in August of 2001. Yeah, that's about right. From a high school friend of mine who was the assistant principal at one of the middle schools, and she says, Teresa, you speak Spanish, right? And I'm like, sure, yeah. She goes, I knew you did, but I wanted to be sure. She said, would you consider coming and teaching a couple of Spanish classes? One of our teachers left, is not going to fulfill their contract because they got accepted into law school, and they've left us in the lurch. Could you take on 2 classes and teach a Spanish class? And I'm like,
Neat.
well, I'm not a teacher. I don't have any teaching credentials.
I think if you have a master's, you can be a teacher, right?
Well, no. Well, you still have to go through the licensing process. But
okay.
She was like, but we have an alternative licensing process. You can either get your license through your schooling, which is what most people do.
Right.
But the state also has an alternative licensing program. She goes, we'll get you set up in that, and you can be working while you earn your license.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Is
it's
that
a great
something that
program.
still happens?
Yes, absolutely.
Do it. All right.
Yeah. So, whatever age that was, never having taught a day of classes per se in my life, I was a trainer, in my business. As a manager, you train your employees and such.
Got the managing skills.
I said, well, okay, I didn't like the idea of 60 kids not being able to learn Spanish because I love Spanish, and I thought, well, okay, I can do that. So sure enough, I went to work at Conway Public Schools while I was earning my teaching license from the state of Arkansas, and I taught 2 middle school classes of Spanish 1. They also discovered that. They also asked me would I consider teaching English as a second language classes, because I had been doing that for the adult education in Conway since '98. I'd started teaching English as a second language at night at the Conway Adult Education Center. So I'd been doing that with adults, but I'd never done it with children. Yeah, he's popular today. Would you go all the way back to the bedroom, honey? Thank you, please. So they put me in some ESL classes too. So I had 2 or 3 ESL classes at the elementary level, and then these 2 middle school Spanish classes. And
ESL, English as a second
English
language.
is a second language,
Okay.
or some people call it ELL, English Language Learning classes.
Okay.
So it just depends on the district. So I started teaching, and I realized the first year that I didn't know what I was doing at all. And like I do, I just delved into learning everything I could about how you teach and learning, how learning occurs, and just really boned up on, classroom management skills and different things, this, that, and the other.
Do they give you a curriculum at all, or some?
Well, they provide. You have to follow
points?
their curriculum, and you have to follow the textbook that they use and whatever. But there's a great amount of skill in teaching that most people don't realize.
Oh, I like
what it
teachers.
takes. So
Appreciate them.
So pretty much my first year, I cried every night because I just really felt lost, and it's not something I enjoyed, not knowing how to do something. So thank God one of the librarians there gave me a set of videotapes from a gentleman called Fred Jones, and it was called Tools for Teaching, and it was all about classroom management and how to get your class to do what you needed them to do so that you could actually then proceed to teach them what they needed to know. And it changed my life. It changed the way I taught, and it was awesome. So big kudos for Fred Jones, Tools for Teaching. It's still out there. It's a great program. You can find it on YouTube and whatever. Any teacher, all teachers would benefit from learning this.
I like this on-the-job training teaching, because that's how I go to school.
Yeah.
I did the EMT thing and the radio and firefighting. So I've been to college a bunch of times, and I started in psychology, but I figured out it's a lot of schooling, and it wasn't really. I'm not good at that structure stuff. I'm good enough for getting a certificate.
Right.
And then go learning on the job. But you got your certificate while you were learning on the job. That's a great thing for anyone that's thinking about becoming a teacher.
Yes.
Please do it.
It's
See if there's a program for that.
And it's good that you have some life experience. I think when you become a teacher, not that there's anything wrong with the traditional way to become a teacher, but when you've got some life experience, it just helps you to understand more about what those students face in their life that they have to bring to school with them. And it explains a lot about, most behavior problems stem not from that they're bad kids, but that they have come from insupportable situations and they don't know how to deal, or they have no support, or they're working 2 jobs, or they're taking care of, younger siblings while both parents work. I mean, there's just tons of reasons why students don't do well in school. And you can be a support and a benefit to them, or you can just be another roadblock in their development and in their life. And I always wanted to be a support.
So you think starting as a teacher in your late 30s, I guess?
I did, yeah.
And you had life experience.
I was already 40 or 42, I guess, when I started teaching.
It gave you the insight and the empathy to realize people's situations, try to dig deeper into these. What's wrong with that kid?
So
Why is he doing wrong?
Yeah, it's not about, just you're not doing what I want you to do in my classroom. It's more about why are you having problems and what can we do to help you learn. And most teachers have that urge and have that desire to help their students.
But not the time.
But it's hard. It's really hard. And true, not the time. And then if you're also young and you're, raising your own family, it just adds that extra layer of stress of teaching never stops at the classroom door. It doesn't start there and it doesn't stop there. Teachers, it's a 24/7 kind of thing for most people, because teachers do care, and there is a ton of things that have to happen outside of the classroom in order for learning to be successful, and it's the teacher's responsibility to make that happen. And most people never understand that about teaching. The general public doesn't understand that about teaching more often than not.
Well, you mentioned 60 kids learning Spanish, not at the same time, right?
No, that was 2 classes.
2 classes, but 30, even 30 was a lot of kids.
30's but that's a fairly normal classroom size at the time. Now they're they're learning that smaller classroom sizes are better. They're learning, they've learned a lot in terms of how to help students be successful in the years since I was in the classroom. And it's an ongoing process. And there's always educational theories that either support your personal thinking or help you learn something new that you might not have thought about. And so I just began to learn about teaching.
What school was this that you were Spanish teacher?
I was teaching the Spanish classes at Carl Stewart Middle School. And then
in Conway?
In Conway, yeah. And then I taught the elementary grade level English language classes at Sally Cone, which was still a school then, back then. It's not now.
You were going from one school to the
mornings
other?
were elementary school. I was called a traveling teacher.
Yes.
Mornings were elementary school, and afternoons were the 2 middle school classes. And then after that year, Conway elected.
Who was easier to teach, the elementary or the middle school?
Middle school kids are very difficult to work with for me. Now they're the heart and soul of some teachers life, but they were difficult for me. But also the ESL classes, I was teaching 2 or 3 students as opposed to 30.
I gotcha.
So it was an entirely different kind of experience.
These are kids from South America.
Just had moved in to the Conway schools, and they had not learned enough English to be able to follow the instruction well. So they had pull-out classes where we would try to help them with their English and so on. And that's a big component of the school systems now that have a high second language population. It's not always Spanish. There's a high, population of Arabic speakers in certain Little Rock areas. I mean, there's other languages besides. Yeah,
Sonia Claire.
Sonia Claire does speak Arabic, but that's not where she learned it. She learned it in college.
Okay.
But
What'd she learn in Jordan?
Arabic. That's
Okay.
but that was while she was in college. The Air Force sent her there between her junior and senior year. She does. She's quite the traveler, just like I wished I could have been when I was younger. I did plenty for my own age group, so to speak, or time in life, but she's really done some tremendous traveling, so we're real proud for her.
We live vicariously.
Yeah, we do. Trust me, I do. Absolutely. So then I went to work, after Conway, I went to work at Joe T. Robinson High School in Little Rock at the Pulaski County Special School District. So I drove to Little Rock for that class. And then that year, the year after I finished there, that was a high school class, which is, for me, a much easier group to teach than middle school students were. And I know a lot of people flinch when you talk about teaching high school, but I loved high school students. I really felt like I connected with them much more than I was able to with the younger students.
Well, I think they've already got their personality, and they're starting to become adults and trying to reach out into that. So they're ready to learn. The middle school kids seem like they're stuck between being babies and
growing up,
trying to grow
and it's
up.
tough for them. And I probably, would enjoy it more now that I'm more experienced. But as a first-year teacher, it was rough for me personally.
Yes.
I just felt like I had to censor myself a lot,
Yes.
so that I didn't overwhelm them, or be inappropriate in some fashion in terms of asking them to do things maybe they weren't ready to do,
Right.
or I don't know. It was just much harder for me, and they were very loud. I have a real problem with loud, and I just
High schoolers are able to choose their courses by that time, so they're taking it because they want to learn.
Right.
well, so were the middle school kids. It's just a question of the hardest thing for me about middle schoolers teaching in middle school was the sheer volume of the students was very difficult for me. I can hear a phone ringing down my block. I have very sensitive ears, and there was just so much noise in the middle schools. Even though the high schools are noisy too, it was just way harder in middle school.
I was going to ask you if there was a noise complaint when the baby was born in that room over there.
No, not that time.
Did Mama scream a lot?
No.
Did the neighbors? Did any of the neighbors know that
I don't
this was
think
going to
they
happen?
even knew. Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
they were even aware. I don't think any of them are here now that were the same neighbors. But
Okay.
Michael and Watt, I don't remember his wife's name. They probably knew because we were kind of friendly with
Oh, that's nice.
Michael that ran.
yeah, I do.
It's good to have a neighborhood where you know people. You can, wave across the street. Hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, but I think we've probably been in this particular circle the longest. There's John. They've been here.
Well,
Randy's been here a long
people
time,
that
but
had
not.
been here for a while kind of considered me the neighborhood watch because I still smoke cigarettes, but I refuse to smoke indoors. I just
Well, the house smells great.
Well,
I wouldn't even know
He
that.
quit
but
now.
I did back then.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't let him
Sit on
smoke
the
around me when I was
porch, and
pregnant.
If a car was in a driveway that I didn't know,
Mm.
they knew I had its license plate, make, and model, because I knew everyone's cars, and I knew everyone then. But quite a few of the homes have become rental units.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know you have a good neighborhood watch
Yeah.
in Bruce.
So.
So,
Anyway, so I taught at Joe T. Robinson, and that was the year they decided that they had to scale down their teaching force, and so they let everyone go that hadn't been with the district for 3 years. So everybody that hadn't been there for 3 years was released with the more or less kind of promise that they would probably pick your contract back up the next school year, but you were released in May, and then they would talk to you again in August. Well, I had gotten my license by that time and passed all the required tests and exams and prep whatever in the classes that the state required. So I had my teaching license.
how long did it take from 2001 till
It was 2 years. It's a 2-year
2
program
years
at
while
the time
you're teaching?
while I'm teaching.
That's great.
So I had Saturday classes twice a month or something. I can't remember exactly what all I did, but I know there was outside class work, lots of studying, on my own, and then passing the various exams, a praxis exam and a Spanish language exam and things like that to get the license. So I'd gotten my license by that time, and I then became licensed to teach pre-K through 12 Spanish, which is still my license. And
oh, you still have it?
I do. I'm actually in the process of renewing it for my lifetime teaching license, so I'll never have to renew it again. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good step for me, is to get a lifetime teaching license in pre-K through 12th grade Spanish. So that's
go Teresa Roebuck. So. That's fantastic.
So after,
when did you get let go from Pulaski County?
That was in 2000, and it was whatever year 911 was. No, the year after. So 2002, they released us with the assumption that they would hire us back. Well, in the meantime, I saw an ad in the newspaper for...
Wait, all those first three schools was
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah,
1 year,
2 years. 2 years. Conway schools and then Pulaski County special. I actually taught 2 years at Joe Robinson, I think, now that I think about it. Didn't I?
Because that's a lot of schools to be put in. But
well, you know,
all right, so say 2003.
There's a tremendous teacher shortage at that time, and I imagine it's still pretty palpable. But at the time, you know, everybody was looking to hire somebody, especially a Spanish teacher. Wow. And so once I got released from Joe T. Robinson, I saw an ad in the newspaper for the Arkansas Department of Education's Distance Learning Center, and they wanted a Spanish teacher to teach over the internet. Or in this case, what they call compressed video, which you probably might know something about. I don't know, radio doesn't do compressed video, but I know they do, like you understand about long distance stuff. So I went to talk to the folks at the Distance Learning Center, and they were asking me about what kind of things, or they were telling me about like what I would need to do and what did I know. And so I already knew PowerPoint, and I already knew Dreamweaver, and I already knew web design, and because I'd done that stuff. I'd made my personal website for my eBay stuff. Yeah. I'd done the digital publishing software for the Catholic newsletter, PowerPoint, Microsoft, email, all of that I'd learned, in the schools and this, that, and the other. So I had all the requirements that they were looking for. So they hired me to teach over what they call an interactive compressed video system, and I taught in 9 different Arkansas towns.
Yes.
Over a camera. I had a camera sitting on top of a television, big monster television. At the time, I used to call him Darth Jr. Because it had a little black camera about that big, and then the big black television. And
so did you have to go to a classroom?
I had an office.
Okay.
We had a school office building. There were 20 some odd of us in Maumelle, and we taught classes all over the state for school districts that either didn't have enough students to make it profitable for them to hire a teacher full-time for 5 students who wanted to take Spanish. They have to offer it, so they would come to the Distance Learning Center. And at the time, the state was moving into the requirements that everyone needed to take an over-the-internet course and needed to take a long-distance learning course of some sort. And so they were looking for options of how to incorporate this technology into their different small rural school districts. So I taught at places like Earl and Ward and Prescott, and I forget all where I taught. Some up in North Arkansas and some in South Arkansas.
So is this something that's open to the public, or?
Yeah, it's a school district. It's a state initiative. It's run by the Department of Education.
But can anyone access these videos, or?
No, you have to be enrolled in the school district. Yeah, it's always. Yeah, it was synchronous. It wasn't. Yeah, I was live. They were live in my classroom, and vice versa. Yeah, it was an inspiring time. I could see them. The camera would switch from. Yeah, the camera would switch from class to class, depending on who's asking the questions, where the input was coming from, and my camera would switch back and forth.
How many kids are you teaching at one time? Could this be the 60?
Probably. Oh no, I probably had 190 something.
190 kids you're teaching at the same time.
I'm teaching 5 different classes or 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, 9 different towns. Some of them had 5 students, some of them had 30. It just depended.
Do you feel like that was more taxing on you as a teacher, as an instructor, or dealing with the kids live in your classroom would be better?
I liked them both.
Yes.
I did enjoy learning all the things I had to learn to be a good teacher interactively.
Sure.
Like that, or over the internet. Because I had to build, we used Dreamweaver, which is an Adobe product. Mm-hmm. It's to build websites. And we used Dreamweaver, and we had to build our website for the students to access all of our assignments, all the materials, all the extra things that weren't in the book, anything along those lines. We built our website and our lesson plans so that the students always knew what they were supposed to be doing and where to find it and this, that, and the other. So we built our website and our class planning a week out to 2 weeks out, and that always had to be finished before we could go home on Friday. So there were some late hours in there, just like in any teaching job. But ours was all done online. And then the students would do the work. Sometimes they were able to scan it and submit it back to us electronically, but we really weren't quite there yet, technology-wise. It wasn't common yet for people to be able to do that. Because we're still looking, we're talking like flip phone technology. We're talking 2002, 2004.
Yeah, YouTube was brand new.
Yeah.
I'm thinking YouTube is probably taking a lot of these jobs that you're...
It's possible. Well, and other than they don't... Ours were definitely like within the boundaries of the Department of Education.
Right.
There's lots of learning situations out there now, and you're right. Ours were precursors to all of that. So we were the virtual, distance. We call it Distance Learning Center, and so I worked with them for 3 years, 2 or 3 as a classroom teacher, and then I decided. By this time, Claire was about 10. Thinking 10 or 11, I don't know, 2005. So 9, 10,
she was born in
so
96.
I wanted to spend more time with her. So I went to part-time. I told, I said, in 3 years she won't care where I am.
Right.
13-year-old girls are notorious, they don't care about mom. But right now she wants to be with me. So I went to
Dad's never right.
And Dad had never been right ever since. That's right. So I went to work for them part-time, and I became like the title was assistant curriculum instructor. But what I did was when they hired new teachers, I trained them how to do I worked with their technology. If they had technology problems, I would help them. If they needed to learn how to make a PowerPoint work or build their website, I was the person there to help them do that. I just loved all that technology, and I got very good at learning how to do things because I'm just not afraid to push buttons and click on things and see what happens. And so I did that for a while, and then I decided they decided they couldn't really afford someone just part-time anymore. They were restructuring all of that at the department. So I said, fine, I'll find another job or whatever. And that's when I decided I would start my vintage clothing store. So that's when I did it. It was between the 2 years between when I worked for the Department of Education Distance Learning Center. I started my retail store, brick and mortar, tried to make it work for almost 2 years, and it just was on the verge of not really, it was just really not making money well. And
late 2000s?
Yeah, late 2006, 2007, let's say.
Okay. Where was the store?
No, 2005. It was here in Conway. You know where Stobie's drive-through place was downtown?
Yes.
Off, the curve is on
yes.
on Prince. It was that yellow house there. That yellow house was where I had my shop. I love that little house. It's so nice. It needed a lot of work, but it's just a great little place. It has great energy in it. Yeah. Well, I'm ahead of my time, as usual.
Right.
So there just wasn't the market yet for a walk-in vintage
the
clothing
kids
store.
want vintage clothing.
No, they do not. Not in Conway, Arkansas.
All right.
Or not then, anyway. But anyway, to make a long story short,
Make it longer.
which is never going to happen at this point, but I had kept in touch, obviously, with my folks from the Department of Education that I worked there, and my friend Belinda Cottrell, who's also my boss at the Distance Learning Center. I had gone to a news. What do you call them? A news. Yeah, where they something news happening.
Okay.
And they have a news
An
coverage thing. Yeah, an event, a news event.
Sure.
I know there's a word for it. I'm getting old. I'm losing my words.
Yeah, when we're done with the podcast, you'll remember.
I'll remember it, right. So anyway, so I saw Belinda there, and I was like, "Oh, Belinda, how you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. And I asked her about her little girl, and all of a sudden, Belinda says, and she turned to the lady sitting next to her, and she says, "Debbie, this is the woman you need for that job you have." And I'm like, okay.
Perk up?
I'm like,
What job?
I'm not really looking for a full-time job, but I'll listen, So eventually, Debbie and I talked more, and they suggested I apply for a job that the department had called an online professional development coordinator, which was someone to help build a website that would allow teachers to get their professional development training online.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of having to travel and do it live, they could do classwork online in modules and that sort of
Once
thing.
again, ahead of your time. Yeah.
It was a great
Online is everything
great,
now.
Yeah, I'm a great project person. I
Yes.
love to do things that like have a start and a finish. And so Debbie and I talked, and I went through the hiring process, and I was hired. And so I started working, and I told them I was very upfront, and I said, I really don't want to have to drive to Little Rock every day. Well, as it worked out, they were creating this website in conjunction with AETN. So I got to have my office at AETN instead of having to drive down to the Arkansas Capitol grounds and go to the Department of Education building. So I had my office here in Conway. I was working with computers. I was building a website. Actually, we built two. We built the modules for the Arkansas IDEA system, which is I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's about, IDEA. Arkansas IDEA. No, it's a different one. Not that one, a different one. The one I worked on for the Department of Education. It doesn't matter. It's professional development. All teachers in Arkansas at the time had to have 60 clock hours of professional development training in order to maintain their license every year.
Right.
That's a lot of clock hours on a yearly basis.
And they're able to do it from the comfort of their own home now?
And because of this system that we helped build, they're able to do it on their computers at home in their pajamas.
I think these computers are going to catch on.
One of these days, people are going to figure out this is a cool thing.
Yeah.
So I helped design that, and I helped approve so as the courses were written by the curriculum folk there at AETN, and then some of them we bought from outside vendors and set into this website that the teachers could access. If they had a teaching license, they could access this website and get their professional development hours through these individualized courses. So I would approve those courses as they were created, that they met the requirements met by the Department of Education standards. And then the other thing that we built while I was there was what they call it PD-SAM, the PD Submission and Management website. And it was a module that we used so that outside companies that wanted to provide professional development to teachers in Arkansas would submit their proposals through this website, and then I would get the paperwork and the information, and then I would approve it, through my office at the Department of Education. So I was the professional development online coordinator. So I was I was helping people get approved professional development. So like if a local teacher or a local person thought that they had things that a teacher could learn from and get professional development, as long as it met the Arkansas AD standards, then I could approve it, and then teachers could go and get their training from them. And then they could also get their training online. So you had an in-person trainings and then online trainings. And then what I discovered...
So would they come to you at AATN, or they would go to...
I would interview... Some of them I would interview and talk about their products or what they wanted to do. Others, as we were building the website, before the website was finished, it was all personally done.
Right.
And I would travel the state and talk to groups and get what they were going to do and all of that. But as the website was developed, it became more and more about submitting the information online. Then I would be able to read it and scan it online and approve it online, as opposed to having to go and talk to them personally. And I laughed and told them, if they wanted to find a way to make something easier, you take it to someone who's pretty smart but really lazy, and they'll make it easier. And that's me all over. I like things to be streamlined and smooth and make sense.
Yes.
And
necessity is the mother, laziness is the father.
Something like that. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you are a good dad, except you're not lazy. Not in the least. So I figured out a way to make it easier for professional organizations in Arkansas, like professional teaching organizations, because we have a lot of those. Professional organizations or departments of universities and colleges, they have people who do professional development for teachers. And I figured out a way to streamline the application process in person to make that an easier process for all of them too, so that organizations who wanted to have a conference or a convention, instead of having to turn in 60 to 100 pages of paperwork, they were able to come through my office and do it in just a couple of quick, easy
go get them.
application. The forms changed dramatically.
Oh, I like quick and easy. No problem.
Quick and easy. And so I always laughed that I was one of the few people from Department of Education that the school districts were happy to see, because I had made their jobs easier all the way around. To
Teresa
get professional
Roebuck, good
development.
job.
So it was a lot of I love the work, but it was a job. It was an 8 to 5, plus kind of job, and I just eventually wanted to work for myself more than I wanted to work for somebody else.
Right, you still had to go somewhere and stay away from your family.
Yeah.
And you're still missing these pretty girls growing up, and this handsome fella right here. That's you've.
And I just don't. I'm just not a very 9 to 5 kind of person.
She's easily bored.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I could see that. You've had different
totally
jobs.
Let my secret out. Yeah.
No, you've had different jobs. You need stimulation.
I am.
You started out at the beginning of this podcast with just the living room itself. Then you need stimulation, visual stimulation.
I do. My brain just
mental
needs
stimulation.
Yeah. Just like a big sponge.
Yes.
So I do. I get bored very easily.
So how long did the education thing at the AETN and the ADE?
I worked for ADE from 2006 to 2008. I got all the projects finished, and it had just become a series of 8 to 5 answering emails, going to meetings. I got bored. So I decided I would start a business.
So it seems like 2 years is the shelf life for many of these jobs.
For me, so far, that's the truth. I've told Bruce many times. He's like, they can pay me to be bored. It doesn't bother him a bit. He did factory work, and he did the same thing for hours at a time. My theory and my motto is they really can't pay me enough to be bored. It's just not going to happen. It just makes me physically ill, practically. I just can't do it. So, for a lot of people, they find that very hard to understand. They're very more conventional. They're like him. He just wants to do his job and get paid, and then he has outside activities.
Correct.
Well, when I do something, I pretty much put my whole self into it. So it just kind of becomes me.
Yeah, your job has to be your hobby. It has to be what makes you happy as well.
It's what I do. So, so I left that 8 to 5 situation, and I started working for myself, doing professional development around the state, doing presentations. So I would do workshops and.
Bring a laptop and a projector? Or?
Yeah, hopefully most of the time they had the projector, but I went around the state, different school districts, and we have educational co-ops here in Arkansas, and I would go to the different co-ops, and they would contract with me to provide 3 or 4 or 5, whatever plus days of workshops on different subjects. I have 10 or 12 or more different subjects that I am competent to train teachers on by this time, and And I did that instead of working at a real job. So I would have a very hectic summer when the teachers were off work, and then I would have a very leisurely school year, and I would just do a few around the years. And I was still doing eBay, and I was still doing. I just do things. I just find ways to earn money, and I do it, And so that's kind of just been my whole life story.
I had a cousin who used to buy and sell from eBay.
Yeah, it was fun for a while.
Sounds like it. The packaging. Do you have? I guess you have FedEx come and pick up the stuff from your door.
No, I did back then, or I would have UPS pick them up. But it got to be very, very tedious to do all the shipping and the handling and all of that. And then with vintage clothing, it was very difficult. And the economy, that was it dumped on us, there for a while. But I just always have made up ways to earn money. It just has never been a difficult thing for me to figure out how to earn $100, $200, whatever. I can find something and sell it. I can offer a service. I can teach a class. I can do things like that. But in 2011, okay, so the build up for the trainings that I did was Discovery Education had a product that I had used as a teacher and thought was awesome.
Okay.
Called Discovery Streaming. And it's the largest nonfiction digital library in the world. And it's a branch or an arm of the Discovery Channel.
Okay.
So if you think of all those great Discovery Channel videos that people love, well, they have scabillions more that are available to school districts or homeschoolers to help teach your students. And it was coming into its own, the whole digital thing. Computers were coming into the schools more and more, and so on. So I had used that system as the basis for a lot of my trainings because I knew that the state Department of Education had bought a license for every teacher in the state of Arkansas to have access to that program. But not many of them knew how to use it because it was technology. And at that point in time, a lot of teachers didn't even know how to check their email.
What?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's what I was doing with the co-ops and stuff. I was doing digital learning. I was doing United Streaming or digital Discovery Streaming. I was doing copyright and what's copyright and what's infringement and what rights do teachers have. I was doing all of the brand new web tools, brand new back then, things like Instagram, Facebook. We moved into things like Powtoons, and there's so many web tools that started sprouting up.
Yes.
So that was the basis of my trainings for teachers, was always some sort of technology. Well, and I would generally always fall back on Discovery Education because you use digital media with these other web programs to create content for your students. And so that would be the basis of my trainings, would help teachers learn how to do that. In 2010, the Department of Education decided not to renew all those licenses. So not only did a lot of the school teachers no longer have license to access that digital product, I didn't either, because I didn't have a school. I wasn't employed by a school to have access to it on a school basis, so I had been using it as an individual teacher, and then I no longer had information or access to it. So I went to an event that Discovery was holding in Little Rock.
Yes.
Thank goodness. And I just went to because it was fun. I loved all of their events. I'd go to any of them that they ever have.
Yeah.
Because it was more learning. And I said, look, here's what I do, and now I don't have access anymore. How can I get access so that I can continue to offer these trainings and do the work that I love to do? And he just said, well, why don't you come to work for us? And so in 2011, I started working for Discovery Education as an independent consultant and a trainer. Cool. Yeah.
And you're in Arkansas.
So many good
all over the country. All over the country.
All over the country. So do they have
Mexico.
A base here in Arkansas?
No, all of the contractors were all independent contractors that delivered the professional development for trainers, for teachers. And we were from all over the country. When I started in 2011, there were 23 of us. I did it for 7 years, and I traveled. I think I've been to every state, probably more than once.
Wow.
don't think I've been to. No, I haven't been to Alaska, and I don't think I've been to Delaware.
No Hawaii, or did you go?
I've been to Hawaii twice.
How about this?
Paid to go.
Go.
Paid to work.
Let's
Invited
go.
him to go. Idiot turned me down.
Dummy. Next.
Next. That's right. So. Yeah, right. She was a teenager by then. Anyway, so I started working with Discovery Education, and I swear, it's one of those jobs, and I always categorize it. It's the job you love or you hate to love, because it was so stressful. Constant traveling, constant work, in school districts, up at the crack of dawn to catch flights. We'd work one day in one city and maybe have your next assignment in another state. I remember at one point in time we were in a real crunch because we just didn't have enough people to meet the demand, and I literally worked in visited 11 states in 12 days.
Ooh, that's hard on the body.
It was very difficult. But I rented my first car and had my first professional development training in Miami Beach, Florida.
Hey.
Oh my God, it was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life, because I was just a little Arkansas girl. I really had never gotten to travel much after I came back from Chile. Just my life had not worked out that way. And then all of a sudden, here I am at 52, and I've got a whole new career, a whole new fun thing to do, and all kinds of stuff to learn. So I rented my first car and drove in crazy Miami traffic.
Welcome to Miami.
That's right. And I realized, you know what? I'm not old. I'm empowered. And so I really just had a great time and loved doing that work for so long. But after 7 years, it was kind of getting to me. My mom had started living with us. She had a stroke in August of 2017 and then passed in September. And I just didn't have the heart anymore. Bruce was having trouble, and he had 3 surgeries in 2018. So it was just the time. It was time. The job itself had changed. They had to restructure the way that they wanted to pay us, and it just was not working out for me anymore.
I would like to get rid of the higher earning old ways.
Yeah, that's what companies do, streamline.
Yeah, so they made it where it was very difficult for me to continue working there, because I wouldn't have made as much money, and I wouldn't have been able to pay my bills the way I want to.
Right.
And so it worked out that not only because of my life situation, but because of the changes with Discovery and the way that they were restructuring their independent contractors' contracts, it was just better for me to go ahead and stop. I didn't want to lose money. I don't like to go backwards.
No.
So
to prove your joy for working for them, you worked there longer, just about anyway.
Oh, 7 years.
I've never worked for someplace 7 years, ever, and I loved most of it, as you well know. Loved the perks, because naturally we got to keep all of our own, because we paid for our expenses ourselves, and then we're reimbursed. I got all the airline points. I got all the hotel points. We traveled so much on the benefits and perks of those points and those travel miles and such. So we did cruises, and we went to Spain, and we've been to Spain 3 times, and we went traveling. We just did a ton of stuff that we would never have been able to do without the income, which was really nice, and the travel perks of working for Discovery. So I hated to leave it, because I did love it, but at the same time I hated to love it because it was a very stressful way to earn a living, but I loved I would go in and I would do workshops. I would do 3 to 6 hour workshops, 1 to 3 days at any particular location. Met wonderful teachers all over the country, learned a ton about digital media and web tools for learning and teaching, and just stayed current on all the new things. So, just had a running list of new tools all the time that came out on the web to help students learn and teachers teach, and it was just a ton of fun.
Well, that job, Teresa Roebuck, it allowed you to travel with your husband, Bruce, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Where did you end up going? And you say you just started enjoying cruises and
well, let's see. We took our first cruise with Sandra Claire when she was 12.
Where was Mariah at this point?
She was living with her dad in North Dakota or Minnesota, one of the two. her dad and her stepmom, ended up having a child 18 months after Bruce and I had Sandra Claire. So Mariah went from being an only child with 2 sets of parents to having 2 baby half-sisters.
Hey.
So I wanted her to have experience with the other family also. So she went to live with her dad in like the end of 8th grade and stayed all through high school with her dad so she could have that experience, because she'd had birth to 4 years with Claire, and now she had a baby sister up there, so she's lived with them, finished high school up there, and then came back to Hendricks and had more time with us. So, but we took our first cruise on a Disney cruise with Claire. Mariah was up in Minnesota. Then we took another Disney cruise because Mr. Man over here fell in love with cruising.
Uh-huh.
I got home from the first one, said I'll sell my truck if we're going another one.
Let's do it.
Just couldn't believe how much fun they were, and so that kind of set a pattern for us. We've now been on 4 or 5 or 6 cruises.
All with the same company, or
no, Disney's a little more expensive than we can do if we don't have a kid in tow. It was worth it with the child, but for 2 adults, it's not really the one you want to go to. Even though it's fun and we'd enjoy it, even if we didn't have kids.
Does it look weird if I go to Disney by myself?
No, I mean, But what we had done, I had found a Disney land and sea cruise, so we did a 4-day cruise and then 3 days in the park.
Oh, nice.
And it was awesome. It's a great deal. I recommend it to anyone.
Okay.
So we did that twice, once with Mariah and once without. And then he and I have been on 2 transatlantic cruises, which are 15 to 16 days, where you cruise from port wherever it is, Orlando area,
Yeah, that's an
or
hour
Miami.
Away from
We did
hour
one
away
from Miami.
From the ocean.
Yeah.
I lived in Orlando for a
yeah,
year.
but there's a port. That's what they say. But it's really not. It's the port, whatever it's called. But we let's see. So we flew to Barcelona the first time, and then we went to Miami first, crossed to Barcelona, spent a week in Barcelona afterwards, or 9 days actually, in Malaga and Gavà del Mar. That's where the beach trip was, yeah. And then flew home from Barcelona, and then the second time we went, we flew to Barcelona first, stayed a couple of days on the beach, and then sailed back from Barcelona to Miami. And that was the longer one, yeah. So it's like 12 days on the ocean and a couple
now.
of days.
I'd be big as a house. I got off that cruise.
It's just so
I heard it's
nice.
wall-to-wall eating.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If
you
you want, I want.
Yeah, great restaurants, great food. We sail Norwegian cruise line, but that's just because that's who we sailed with, and every time we go, we buy what they call cruise credits.
Yeah.
Because they give you a great deal. If you buy cruise credits, you get like a big reduction off your incidentals bill, and it's just it's a way to keep you loyal.
Sure,
And then we're part of the loyalty program, and we just have never had a bad experience with them, so we keep going. So we've still got a couple more cruises to get under the books before 2022, when our cruise credits run out.
Better get on that boat.
Oh yeah. So, well, now that he's all better, he was in a neck brace until July.
What?
6 months in a neck brace from his surgery back in January of this year. So we're probably looking at doing one in next spring. I'm hoping we can get one tucked in spring sometime.
Excellent.
So yeah.
2018, you're done with that job, cruising all over the country and getting your airline points.
Yeah.
Now what?
Well, while I was working for Discovery, I met a young woman named Sarah Bucciero, and she happened to be doing work in Northwest Arkansas, and I was up there too, so we had dinner together, in the evenings. She is from North Carolina, and at the time, I had gotten a breakout on my face. I had gotten like some disease, whatever, on my face years, probably due to the stress and the travel and just the bad air and environmental stuff. I'd gotten some sort of dermatitis on my face, and I was very red and broken out and raw and itchy, oozy. It would dry up and then crack. It was just terrible, and it made me very self-conscious because, of course, what did I do for a living but stand in front of people and talk?
Right.
So
you want to look your best, feel your best.
And so I would try makeup, and makeup made it worse because it would would cake up in the crevices, and it was just terrible. And I'll show you. I know you podcast folks can't see it, but
they'll see it when they go to your Facebook
that's
or your
true.
website.
They'll see it on Facebook. I'm definitely have a presence, but that's a very small, mild breakout.
Okay, you got a little breakout on maybe the V's down the nose.
It even would come up on my eyelids and behind my ears and under my chin. It was just all over, and it was red and itchy and gross. And so I just hated it, and I felt very subconscious. But I'd never been one to wear makeup. Wasn't used to it. I didn't like it. I was, a child of the 70s, very natural, whatever. I basically washed my face in the shower, and that's all I ever did. But I had this stuff, and my friend that I'd made there said, I work for a company, or I started selling a product that I think will help you. 60-day money-back guarantee. If it doesn't work, you'll get your money back. And I had tried everything. 5 years I'd been trying to get rid of this nasty stuff on my face. And so I'm like, sure, I'll give it a shot. So when I went to the website to check it out and look at it, I realized that she was offering an incentive to become a consultant. And if you become a consultant, you get a deeper discount on your personal products, obviously. So I thought, well, that's the way to go. She had a personal incentive. I'd get a bigger discount. So I went ahead and signed up as a consultant after checking it out and realizing it was a top-notch company. The doctors behind it were Stanford-trained dermatologists. They had already been in business for 20-plus years, had already created a product that went global in its reach and was very effective with the symptoms of acne, taking care of teenage acne. And so I knew that it was a really unique opportunity to get involved with this company, because they had branched out from just acne products to all kinds of skin concerns, and mine was one of them. So redness and sensitivity, anti-aging, another acne product geared more for adults, and one that reduces the signs of sun damage or age spots or uneven skin tone, that sort of thing. So we had a lot of possibilities to help people with their skin concerns. And I definitely had a skin concern, so I said, yeah, sign me up, let's do this. Right. And the compensation plan, I found out as I studied even further, was bar none the best I've ever seen. And I have done multi-level marketing, network marketing as it's called now, in the past.
My parents did Amway.
And had some, recently relatively good success with it. I'd never really found a company that had lasted or, been there like I had hoped that they would be. But it's definitely a ingenious and lucrative way to earn money.
And you set your own hours.
Right, and earn an income stream. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do this, because I realized that making a go of this and doing this consistently, I would have income well past my retirement, and it would augment our income, because already we were on a fixed income with Bruce's disability.
Sure.
And then I had just, I was making really good money, but I couldn't continue to travel and work the way I had been. And of course, with Discovery, if I'm not standing up talking to folks, I'm not earning. It's a contract position. You're paid by the job. If you're not doing a job, you're not earning any money. I don't have a salary. I don't have a big reserve of retirement funds built up or any of that. So I realized this would be a way that I could continue to do fun stuff, talk to people, which is what I love to do, help people, which is what I love to do, well past the time when I might not want to travel and work like a crazy person. So I tried the products. It cleared my face up.
Good.
Like ridiculously fast. I was so pleased. It's never come back. And I've been doing working with Rodan and Fields ever since. Sarah, one of the reasons I joined her team, because I had been asked about joining this same company before,
right.
But I joined with Sarah because Sarah takes all of her commissions from her Rodan and Fields income, and she donates them to St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis. Her son died at 3 years old of pediatric cancer, inoperable tumor, and she had tried to raise money at different ways to keep his memory alive, in memory of him, and to honor him, and to provide more funding for St. Jude's Hospital and cancer research, pediatric cancer and such. So I wanted to help her, knowing that my portion of the income that I produce would then feed her income, which would then go to St. Jude's. So 5% of my commissions go upwards to her funds to help St. Jude's Hospital, and she delivers programs that serve the children of St. Jude's, and then she has programs that directly benefit the hospital itself. So all of her income, 100% of her income from Rodan and Fields goes to St. Jude, and then a portion of my income goes to her proceeds, her base, and then I also provide 10% of what I make in my commissions to the Prescription for Change Foundation, which is Rodan and Fields' nonprofit arm that works with teens to help them stay in school and overcome challenges and just, overall work with them. And they have 3 different organizations that Prescription for Change works with in our 3 different countries that we distribute in. So we have an Australian nonprofit called the Smith Family, the one in America. We have 2 now, but the one I worked with most directly is called Build On. Then I don't remember the name of the new one because they just started it not very long ago. And then the one in Canada is called We. So Prescription for Change, Rodan and Fields donates I think this year it was $3.6 million to these programs for youth and to help.
Very sweet. It's got to make your heart feel good.
So I enjoy.
But do you still make enough to at least supplement your own income as
yes,
well?
I do.
The giving is nice. I'm happy to give.
I love the fact that I can tithe, effortlessly out of my check. But yes, I earn enough every month I've paid our mortgage at times.
Wow,
I pay for certainly my own products. Yes, dear?
Yeah, I'm so proud of my wife.
Yeah.
Did you tell him about your presidential awards?
No, I didn't even talk about Windrock. We haven't done that yet.
Still here.
Yeah, no, I was still. It was before I left
go with
Discovery.
accolades.
Yeah, it was before I left Discovery. So, anyway, sometime in 2016, it was the same year. That's why we're getting there. So soon after I met Sarah.
So this is before you left Discovery.
Yes,
that you had
before
started
I left
with Rodan and Fields.
because I wanted to build it so that it would have the income there when I left.
Great.
Okay. I knew I would have to leave eventually. I just knew that he needed me, and I needed me to slow down a little bit, and then my mom, of course, was getting on, so I wanted to spend time with her too. Unfortunately, I didn't get as much time as I would have liked after I.
But thankfully, she had
down,
Bruce.
But I still, no, I know. Yeah.
Never.
So then because I knew I was slowing down with Discovery in 2017, I started looking for other opportunities to be of service. And I just kind of had gotten that out there in the universe, so to speak. And I got a phone call one day, and this lady says, well, you don't know me, but I saw your profile on LinkedIn, and we're got some same interest groups. She says, would you ever be interested in maybe doing some volunteer work in Africa? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. You're a yes and
I'm a
type
yes
person.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Bruce not going to Hawaii. Still thinking about that.
I know. Can you
All
imagine?
right.
Not
Moving
once,
on.
but twice. Anyway, so she started talking to me. Her name's Jennifer. Well, her name now is Jennifer Robinson, and she works for Windrock International, which is a nonprofit organization that works with the NSAID, which is the Farmer Aid, United States Government Farmers Aid, nonprofit stuff. And she asked me, would I be interested in doing some work in sub-Saharan Africa? And I'm like, absolutely. What do you want?
Yeah. When do I get on the train?
What do I
I'm
need?
packed up. Let's go.
And she said, well, it's farmer to farmer, and you'd be working with a university in Guinea. Mm-hmm. And they need someone to set up a language lab, an English language lab for their students to learn English, and to load the software and to train the students how to use it. I'm like, right up my alley.
All these
Let's
tools
go.
in your toolbox already.
Absolutely.
Teaching kids how to speak another language
perfect.
and computers.
And And she just found me. I mean, this is the way God works for me. I think it's the way God works, period, but most people don't open themselves up enough, I think,
So
to realize
there is
it.
a reason to have my LinkedIn
Absolutely.
profile out there.
Yes,
It's
there
been
is.
out there.
I've gotten not one but 2 jobs through LinkedIn, and there's this volunteer opportunity. So yes, LinkedIn is definitely a conduit of change and possibility. At any rate, not necessarily to plug LinkedIn, but it's the truth.
It's out there.
Yeah. So she calls and she asks, would I do this? And I'm like, yes, please. So I take off work, which is another reason Rodan & Fields is great, because I was already doing it and it allowed me to continue to earn my residual income without having to be around to do anything. I'd already had some customers that order regularly, so I was going to have some income regardless. But I took off.
Did you have people under you? I guess Rodan &
Yeah,
Fields.
I do have a team.
Yeah, call it a pyramid, call it what you want.
It's not a pyramid because those are illegal, but it is a network, social marketing,
yes. There you go.
which is the norm for business in America is becoming more and more network marketing.
Yeah, every business is a network. You start with one person and you work your way.
To me, it's no different than a insurance agency,
No different.
real estate agency.
Yes.
You got the person who owns the agencies, and then
Right.
you have all the other agents working for them, and person who owns the agency gets commission from the work of the others. So it's exactly the same.
Every company's the
But
same.
it's all, So at any rate, but you still have that American stigma of,
Right.
you're a pyramid scheme. No, we're not.
Yeah, that's
None
not
of
a bad
them are
word.
anymore. Those are illegal. They've been taken out of the equation. What we do is direct marketing,
Sure.
where rather than going to a business, brick and mortar business, and
Right.
having 4 middlemen, you talk to me, you find out what products you think would help the most for your skin. You
Sure.
go to my website, you order them. I have no inventory, I have no money handling, I have no shipping. I just tell you the good stuff, and then you go and benefit from it,
Right.
as
You're
he has done, as I have
educating
done.
people
Exactly.
It's through your own personal challenge of your face
my own
having
facial,
problems, and you got fixed by this, and now you have a product you believe in, and you're able to put those out to other people.
Amazing. The company is so responsive, and we have so much training and so many support systems in place for success that it's if you have any gumption at all, and you should be able to earn a reasonable amount of extra income. Everybody needs 5 to 6 income streams to survive nowadays, practically anyway. And so this is definitely one of them. And one of the most exciting things for me is that we finally, after being talked about for a couple of years, we finally have all of our information available in Spanish. So I can finally talk to my Hispanic speakers about this opportunity. And if they're not as fluent in English as they would like to be or might need to be to understand the business concepts, I have it available for them in Espanol.
Another tool in your toolbox.
That's right.
Look at you.
So it's such a help. I mean, when you can, the difference in a lot of people's level of struggle is simply sometimes as simple as a couple of $100 a month between super struggling and not so much of a struggle.
The
or
old thing,
struggle
I think back in the
whatsoever.
80s there was a comedian that said it's $40. If I only had an extra $40, I don't care if you make 1,000 a week plus 40.
Yeah,
make $1 million plus 40. If I had that extra $40.
And if you can do that and continue to have that income coming in after you've done the work the first time, once you do the work the first time, if that work continues to build and multiply and repeat, then you've got yourself a reasonably good way to bring in income to support your family. And it's not hard work in the least.
Are you making videos on your
I do.
YouTube
I occasionally make a few videos. There's tons of video. Corporate puts out all the promotional and marketing material you could ever want. But you can also do your own personal
individual
work
things.
Too. Yeah.
I see these gals doing the live
videos.
videos.
We're washing our faces. And that's really, honestly, if you could just get people to use the products for the 60 days that they have a guaranteed, refund if they don't like it, they're not going to quit using it because it is going to transform their skin, which is going to transform their self-confidence, which is going to transform their income if they let it. Because that's all it amounts to is that you just need to be coachable. You need to be willing to put yourself out there and talk to people or share what you've done to your own face, and see what happens. See who else is available,
First product is still out there.
I wish I had this when I was a kid. I was a pizza face, pimples everywhere.
Yeah, you would have been a prime. He uses it. It helped to get rid of a lot of his sun damage on his face. I continue to use it for its anti-aging benefits. I think my skin looks way younger than it did 10 years ago. And a lot of people agree with me.
Yeah,
so,
how'd you get this hottie, Bruce?
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah,
so, all right.
So Windrock Calls in
Windrock.
2016,
In
Windrock
2016.
International, a nonprofit organization started by the Rockefeller family, and they asked me to go to Guinea, and so I get on an airplane all by my little lonesome and travel to Guinea, South Africa, West Africa.
How long were you planning to stay here? Stay in Guinea?
It was a 16-day contract. It's a volunteer assignment. They call us technical assistants. And I had a technical assistant volunteer assignment in Guinea, and it was 16 days. Windrock takes care of everything. They get your visa for you. I mean, you have to have your passport, obviously.
Right.
You send it off. They get the visa to go into Guinea.
They cover your food and board, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they pay for the airfare. They give you a stipend for your food.
Oh, that's nice.
They pay for the board while you're there, or they did this particular trip, and then you deliver you work with the university. You meet wonderful people. I trained 300 young Guinean students, first and second year English students, how to use this software on their computer lab. Help set up the lab. Yeah, it was fun. And just an amazing, talk about culture shock. Now, there was some definite culture shock
yes.
in Africa. We talked about that with Chile. In Africa, it was just mind-boggling. I flew into Conakry, which is the capital city, we're the only airport, and then drove 9 hours in a Jeep.
Oh.
Or a big, what do you call those, Range Rover
How
kind of vehicle?
stereotypical. Yeah, everything you see about going to Africa. Guinea.
Made the mistake of wearing pants. Should have worn a skirt. So because the toilet facilities are very primitive. So it would have been easier if I had been in a skirt. Because
the floors are dirty, I guess?
No, it's just you're just squatting over a hole
Gotcha.
to do your business.
Gotcha.
Pants get in the way.
Yes.
Men don't have that problem,
Understood.
more often than not, but women do. So, so you learn, very quickly. Boil water. Don't eat anything that hadn't been cooked. Lots of mosquito spray. Lots of netting in the hotels.
Amazing.
Bedside area. So just different things. They speak French in Guinea, and I didn't speak French, so they provided me with an interpreter.
Oh, okay.
And that was awesome. I mean, I would definitely recommend this, to anyone too. If you have any skills whatsoever, go and see if there are any volunteer opportunities, either at Windrock or a multitude of other places, to go and volunteer. You'll have life-changing, life-enriching experiences that you can't get on your own, because you're dealing with, it's not a tourist thing. It's not just going there and being a tourist and looking around and leaving. You're making an impact. You're helping these people to live better lives or to learn. So it was a great experience. So after I finished that, but we were, at that point, it was in 2016, we were at the tail end of the Ebola scare or episode or epidemic or whatever they called it.
Yes.
And Guinea was one of the countries that had been cleared, but only very recently. So it was like a provisional being cleared of no more
You
Ebola.
go to these places after a big event is happening. You had a coup.
I'm telling
in
you, God
75.
puts me, He doesn't put me in danger. He puts me where I'm supposed to be.
Just after things are cleared up.
And
Okay.
So, but
yeah, Ebola was huge back then,
yes,
and now
yes,
I don't even
it
hear
was.
about it.
So my family, they weren't against me going, but they were of course concerned. But my motto always is, if he's going to take me there, if God's going to take me there, He's going to take care of me there. And so I don't have fear like that. It just I trust God's going to have my back. He's going to take care of me, and knock on wood, He always has. So when I come home from Guinea, unfortunately, I ate the fish on the plane coming home. And it
So it wasn't the foreign third world country.
It did not sit
It
well,
was the
and
plane
I got
food.
sick on the plane,
Oh.
and I threw up multiple times because
Don't shout out the plane.
It's a
What
14-hour.
what airline?
It's a
No, don't say it.
14-hour flight, and so I was sick probably 5 or 6 of them. But when you come in through customs, because we're still in the Ebola era, you have to declare whether or not you have vomited in the last however many hours.
No.
Well, being the honest person that I am, naturally, I come into New York State, and they asked me, have you been ill? I'm like, yeah, I threw up multiple times on the plane. I think it was the food, and it just didn't agree with me. That may be a little too much wine. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Here come the hazmat suits.
so here come the hazmats. Absolutely. You think you're joking. Absolutely.
Oh my.
Whisked into another room. Everybody that I talked to from that point on was literally in a hazmat
Oh
suit.
my.
Yellow, orange, banana suits with the plastic face mask and the whole 9 yards. They put the face mask on me, and I'm in the wheelchair because I still feel like crap.
Yeah, how many
I'm
times did you ask?
so
Am I
ill.
going to die? What's going on here?
No, I really personally wasn't afraid. I knew I did not have Ebola. I had not been exposed
It
to
was the
anything.
fish.
And then one of the guards in the TSA area where they take you first before you go to the medical area, he looked at me and he goes, "You ate the fish, right?" And I said, "Yes, I ate the fish." And he says, "Girl, don't you know fish don't fly that high?" I just broke up laughing. He was so matter of fact and so funny. "Girl, don't you know fish don't fly that high?" And so I had a good laugh over that. But
That's why I don't eat fish here in Arkansas. I'm from the Florida Keys.
Well, yeah, you get really fresh fish.
Come on.
But anyway, but it was so intriguing. The fish was barracuda, and I thought, "Ooh, this sounds like
Barracuda's bad anyway. We
I don't
eat
know.
that.
Heard of anyone eating
Yeah, we don't
It
eat
was
that in the
barracuda.
Keys.
it up on the bone so it's bait.
I'm
No,
telling you.
yeah.
Well, whatever. It was something I'd never. Maybe it wasn't barracuda.
I
but it
hope
was
not.
Some fish I had never eaten, and I wanted to try it because let's try it. kind of
Yes,
person.
you're yes
So-
and. You've been good
so
at
anyway,
improv.
But I had a great, easy ride, more or less, through. I guess it was LaGuardia. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was LaGuardia Airport. So they
York.
they wheeled me through all of the checkpoints and right through TSA, check my bag and all that good stuff. So
Did they have you all
and I was
hazmated
tired.
up?
No, just the face mask.
Okay.
Because once they took the history and talked about it, they just and took my temperature and all. I didn't have a fever or anything like that, so they released me.
Don't fly, they don't.
Yeah.
Funny.
So they let me go, but I was still pretty weak. So they were very kind and wheeled me in a wheelchair all the way up to my next gate,
Yes.
which helped me out because I was tired. I'd been traveling 30 hours, by that point. So I was ready to be home and in my own bed.
Yeah,
But
you
it
had
was
the
a-
9-hour
it's a
drive
long-
from
it was
from
9
the
hour
village to
and
the
then
airport.
a 14-hour flight, and then another 3 or 4 home to Arkansas.
Yikes.
So, but that was great. And then a couple of months later, I don't know, was it a full year? Was it in 2017 or was it still in 2016?
That
The
you-
second trip.
you took
Anyway, they
another
called
trip.
me back. Yeah, they called me back. Yeah, it was January. Well, it was the very tail end of January of 2016 because we spent my birthday in Paris.
Oh,
So it's the tail end of
nice.
2016.
Not me.
Not him, her, my daughter. Anyway.
Yes.
So,
They spent the time
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Paris.
yeah.
Bruce
The
home
travelers.
on the chair.
so about 6 to 9 months after I'd come back from Guinea, they called me and said that the country director that I'd worked with in Guinea had asked would I come back and help the library at the university set up a digital library system because they had been doing literally, handwriting of books in and out and their entire library.
When we were kids.
We had at least typewriters. I mean, this was literally handwritten ledgers
Right.
of what books they had in their collection and who took one and who, whatever. So I said sure, and I went with them and I researched and found a nice little digital, self-contained library book management program and helped them set it up and train them how to digitize their books and log them in using the ISBN.
So cool.
International Standard Book Number. That's what ISBN stands for. So they could keep track of their collection and allow students to check books in and out easier and get a little more up to date. So they should by now have a one that they can do with the internet, but I had to find them a standalone because at that point they didn't have internet in their library yet. So it was a standalone computer system on like 2 computers. So it was a lot of fun to work with them. So that was a smaller group. It was just 6 or 8 people that worked in the library, but it was fun to do the research to find something that would work in their situation and install it and train them how to do it. I loved it to teach people how to do things. It's just like
you say you've had a great
fun.
life. You're still living it.
I am.
This last year.
It's just great. Yeah, this was in 2016, and then last year in 2018, I went to Ghana before Mom passed.
Oh.
I can't remember.
You weren't there last year.
Last year was all Florida.
So yeah.
No, I went to Ghana last year in the summer. Yeah, because I went to San Diego for Discovery in the summer of 2017 before Mom passed.
Oh.
So in 2018, after Mom passed, that's right, because it was after Mom passed. So it was
How's
in 2018.
Ghana in the summer? Did you wear a skirt this time? Cause
I did wear a skirt. It was
pants
quite
would have been
warm.
hot.
It was quite well. All of them are. It's not any worse than Arkansas. I mean, in all reality, it was no worse than being in Arkansas in the summer at all. But this time I worked with went to Ghana, a different country.
Yes.
So I went to Guinea twice.
Right.
And then I was awarded the Presidential's Volunteer Service Award for 250 plus hours of public service. And then in
Go get 'em, Teresa Roebuck.
2018, I went to Ghana and worked with the university's Women's Center and helped them set up a 5-year plan for their Women's Center, how to help educate women more appropriately in Ghana. And that was a lot of fun. So I worked with a small group there too.
Like the women's problems and such?
Well, like the women in Ghana and in many African countries are the farmers. They take care of a lot of the small, I don't know what they call them, but they're like very small plot farms. And so they need to learn about commerce. They need to learn about plant rotation. They need to learn about crop cycles and different things. They need to learn about non-hazardous pesticides and all that kind of stuff. And then they need to learn how to market their products. And not all of them are women, but a large majority of them are small landholders, and the women work the farm, work the land. And so this Women's Center wanted to provide ways to educate local women on ways that they could improve their earning capacities with their small land grant or land farms. And Ghana is the world's largest producer of cocoa, of chocolate beans.
I had some this morning.
Yeah,
in my
delicious
coffee.
stuff. So there's a lot of small cocoa bean farmers there. It's an ugly fruit. Those cocoa pod things are ridiculously ugly.
So tasty if you do it right.
So tasty if you do it right. Absolutely. And just had a ton of fun working with them. They speak English in Ghana primarily. They speak some.
Due to the Brits.
Yes, actually. Because Ghana was a English, whatever they call them. No, subdirect. There's a word for it, and I can't think of it offhand. It's like a protectorate until 1956.
Gotcha.
So English is their language of commerce. But they also have a lot of tribal languages, and so one of the ones that the people I worked with spoke was called Chingla, something. And I laughed and told them, because they would switch amongst themselves back and forth between English and their tribal language very very quickly and very easily.
I speak Spanglish when I'm talking to
and
my
that's
grandma.
what I told them.
Oh, yeah.
I said, well, in the United States, we have something that we call Spanglish, and it's when people speak Spanish and English just equally back and forth. And I said, so we're going to say that we're speaking Chinglish. Oh, they loved it. They just thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. And I was like,
really? You just made
I
that
know.
up?
It's like
it sounds
wow.
perfect.
So now it was the whole group. It was like Chinglish. Everybody was speaking Chinglish.
Look at you bringing another word to a whole nother
Oh,
country.
they were just so easily amused.
And yes, kids, Africa is several countries.
Yeah,
we're learning a lot from
more
Teresa
than one
Roebuck.
country, yes. And they speak English in quite a few of them. But in Guinea, it was French, and so I needed a translator there. Although I speak a little French, but not very well. And then, but it was fun in Ghana to have all of the English available, so that I felt that I could express myself more directly. It was fun. And then we did a workshop for the to help. We built the business plan. Not the business plan, but the 5-year plan for their growth as a center. And then I conducted a seminar or a webinar. No, not webinar. Workshop that other people from other universities came to, and I taught them about how to build a good 5-year plan for growth and development in their university settings. So lots of fun. So I got another volunteer service award in the mail for that one.
I knew you had a story, Teresa Roebuck. You
I
never
lived
know.
a hell of a life.
Yes, you're
I've
still
just
living it.
Had tons of fun. I think yes is the best answer to just about anything.
Yes.
And you should ask for anything you want, because all they can do is say no. Mm-hmm. And a good friend of mine many years ago very bluntly said, well, they can't eat you. And I'm like, that's right. So I'm going to ask for what I need and want. And more often than not, it's forthcoming. And I just have tons of opportunity. And I just have been really blessed to have lots of opportunities to go and do lots of cool stuff. So we're pretty much up to the current situation. I have 2 grown, wonderful daughters.
Yes, you do.
I have my husband, who we hope has had his final surgery.
Yes.
At least for maybe a very long time. And he's more physically fit than he's been probably in the last 5 years. And a lot less pain than usual. So we're happy with that. And I have a business that's growing, and I'm looking to expand, and always looking for folks who are willing to try new things and to share good product knowledge and good opportunities with people.
How do you want people to connect with you?
Well, they can come to my Facebook page and find me, Teresa Roebuck, on Facebook. I have an Instagram page. That one's TC Roebuck. To find out more about Rodan & Field's skincare products, they can just go to teresaroebuck.com. I have a longer, more complicated URL that I just made a front jumping page. So if they go to...
Because you're smart like that.
Yeah, if they go to teresaroebuck.com.
I built my first website using HTML and then front page and then Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
My current one is all Dreamweaver.
Is it?
Over
Well, I went ahead and...
pages.
Yeah, no, I went ahead and I've got a... it's a WordPress site.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
just have a
that's-
WordPress front page, and it leaps right into my Rodan & Fields page. Because that URL is complicated and hard to remember, and hopefully people can remember teresaroebuck.com.
Well, I'll put them in the show notes. So
Well, there you go.
click
That's
the
pretty
links
easy.
below.
And they can see not only how to purchase the products for their personal use, but they can also read all about the income and the business options, which are tremendous. Oh, I don't do that as much. That's more of a personal favor sort of thing. I might look into it more.
Was it
close
professional
to the summer.
development?
For teachers, doing
the teachers
workshops
thing.
for
You're
teachers.
still doing that?
Yeah.
Still got the
I'm
certificate
able
for teaching?
to. Yeah.
Are you going to get
I'll
your
do it.
lifetime? Well, what's on the horizon? Lifetime teaching?
Well, I'm signed up to substitute teach. That's
Okay.
just a way to keep my foot in the door. I'll probably do a lot more volunteering in the schools next year when school starts. I've had a hard last couple of years recovering from my mom's death. It really was very, very difficult for me. My mom and I have been close. Well, they're basically 62 years of my life. I've seen her just almost every day, if not every day. A few years there I wasn't close to her physically, lived different places, but
Well, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You're supposed to raise your kids and send them out to the
well,
world.
that's the way it's traditionally been, and I realize that family dynamics are truly different now.
Mm-hmm.
But for me and my family, I wanted my mom to have access to her grandchildren. She doesn't have that many, and she had always teased us growing up that she didn't get married to have kids. She got married to have grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were only two of them when Mariah was little. There was an older granddaughter, and Mariah and the older granddaughter didn't live close, and so I decided that I would stay and make sure that my mom had a grandkid close, and that my daughter would have access to a grandparent. Because my mom's cool. She's one of the coolest people I knew. Very smart, very loving and giving, and a lot of fun, as you can see with that little quirky smile.
Oh,
she was a
look
real
at that
hoot.
smiley face. I see her smile in you from time to time when you're thinking. You give a very similar grin.
Yeah.
All right, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the blue hair.
Oh, the blue hair. Okay.
when did you start coloring your hair?
I still forget that it's there. It's so natural to me.
Is it natural?
It has been red.
It has been red most of my life.
Yes.
When I turned 30 and I got divorced from my husband, then I went to Germany for a month. My older brother was stationed there, and I went to Germany, and I decided I would become a redhead. So when I came back from Germany, I was a redhead at 30, and I stayed a redhead pretty much the rest of my life.
Hubba.
But when Claire was, I don't know how old she was, maybe 12, 13, something along those lines, she goes, "Mom, do you realize I've never really seen your natural hair?" Mm-hmm. And I always keep it really short. So I said, "Okay, well, I'll grow it out and we'll see what it looks like," because I didn't know, And
it's been so long, you don't know your natural hair
I would
color.
cut it and color it, and it would, I never really knew what it looked like. Well, sure enough, it had gone very, very gray. And but I didn't mind the gray, so I wore it gray for a couple of years, just straight, short gray hair, gray and black mixed. And but a couple of years ago, a year ago next month in 2018, I'm a court-appointed sponsor. No, I'm a court-appointed special advocate for children in the foster care system. So I work with kids who have been taken out of their homes for neglect or abuse and placed into the foster system.
Okay.
And there's an organization called Children's Advocacy Alliance, and they do a special fundraising event every year where they paint chairs and auction off the chairs to earn money. Festival of Chairs, they call it. Well, last year, the name of the special gala was called Colors of Hope. And I thought, how fun. I like the idea of that. I've always wanted to color my hair a different color, but I never had, other than red, which is kind of like a normal color, but I always wanted to do something a little more outrageous. So I thought, this is perfect. I'll color it and dye it for this Colors of Hope benefit.
Yeah.
And, it'll be very appropriate. Well, gosh, I just fell in love with it. I mean, it just is like me all over. I love it. And it provides a tremendous amount of positive energy, because I literally walk down the street every time I'm out, and I bet at least 2 to 5 people, perfect strangers, either yell out at me or stop me and say, "I love your hair. Your hair is so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I could do that." And I'm like, do it. Just,
if I can get away with it, I would.
Dye job. So I have to shout out to Amy Gilstrap Dodd at Chris Anthony Salon. She does the cut and the color for me, and she's a real whiz. She takes great care with it and uses excellent products, because the color does not fade. And I've had it this way ever since. And so I just feel like it's like the way I'm supposed to look now.
Okay, so from redhead to blue.
It's blue, teal.
How do people treat you any differently? Were you different as a redhead? Did it make you feel different? And are you different as a teal head, I guess, is now?
No, honestly, I've never been one to think a lot about how I look once I'm done with, like, whatever. I just am me. And so, honestly, I expect it more now, and I don't forget. But at first, when I first have it done, when people would say, "Oh, I love your hair," it would take me a minute to realize what they were talking about. Because to me, it had always just been my hair, And then I realized, oh yeah, it's blue now, And so then I would realize why they were stopping me to tell me how much they loved my hair. But so yeah, I mean, it's definitely a positive energy creator,
So when people tell you how gorgeous you are, you say, I woke up like this.
See, that's the thing. I have never in my life considered myself to be anything other than just a plain
Bruce?
with a big nose,
I told her she brought sexy back with the blue.
Thank you, Bruce.
Well, I was teased when I was young because my face was about the size of an orange, and my nose was the size of that it is, which was large. My mother offered me a nose job or a mink coat upon my graduation, so I always knew that I had a problem with my nose, and I was teased about having a big nose when I was growing up. So I never considered myself to be a particularly attractive person at all. As I grew up, I began to realize that, I was attractive. I don't know that I've ever been anything beyond that, but I have a good face. I have a good face, and I have a sense of style, and I enjoy it. And I'm old enough now that I don't really care what anybody else thinks. I didn't much ever, but I really don't now.
No, if I saw you, it'd be like, is that your natural hair color?
Sure,
Dad from Mars, Mom from Venus.
There
is that
we
what
go.
happened?
Something along those lines. Absolutely. So, but yeah, it's cool. I just do me, and I think that's what everybody should do, and that's one of the things that I promote with young people who want to learn a skill or learn a business. Find what you enjoy. Find what really makes you happy to do it, and do it. And it will work. The universe will conspire to support you. And a lot of people have a lot of doubts and fears, and I understand those, and I've certainly worked my way through tons of them. You don't do what I've done without having doubts and fears and setbacks and fall downs. But if you fall down, the trick is you got to get back up again. You can't stay down. You have to get back up. My poor husband's had 51 major surgeries. We figured out there's probably 15 times, not that he could have died, but that he should have died. He's still here with us. He keeps putting one foot in front of the other all day, every day. My mother lived to be 87 years old, worked in her own business until she was 83, lived by herself for most of her life after my dad passed for all the rest of her life. My dad owned his own business and supported 5 kids and a wife. You just have to do you. Yeah. He loved what he did. He loved talking to people. My mom loved books. Oh my God, she loved books. Crazy. I used to have a tremendous amount of books in my home, and I realized that I just didn't really need to keep them. I can always access them again. As much as I love books,
I read them and I give them to the library, or what have you.
So I used to keep a lot of books, used to collect a lot of books, but not as much anymore. I do collect I've stopped pretty much collecting vintage clothing, and now I collect vintage jewelry, costume jewelry, because it's small and I can more or less contain it in one room as opposed to 3 storerooms.
Still want to have a hobby, but when you go out to those... Well, when you go out to that vintage clothing, is that something that you wear from time to time?
I used to wear it a lot. Most of it doesn't fit
a
person my size. Most of them are much made. People were smaller in the 40s and 50s. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Sure.
We have definitely supersized ourselves right out of regular size clothing.
There is a house.
Occasionally I have a young woman who does own a brick and mortar vintage clothing store, and every time I dig a box out and go through it and air it out and kind of separate it out, she comes in and looks at it. So I still sell clothing to her, items to her. The vintage jewelry, currently I sell it on a small scale, but right now it's just more for me to go through and play with and have fun with, and it's just like magpie, sparkly stuff. It's bling.
Can they still find some of that on TeresaRoebuck.com, or is that strictly for
the vintage jewelry I have on a website on Facebook, or a Facebook page called Vintage Go Round.
Okay.
And
I'll try to put that in the show notes as well.
I have some things there that are available, and other that I share. But I like to see. Is my friend told me yesterday, we were talking about, she's the one that owns the art school. She recently broke her knee, so I'm kind of being her chauffeur to help her get around. And she said, Teresa, you just like to look at pretty things and help people figure stuff out. That's just you. And I'm like, you're right. I like to look at pretty things, and I like to help folks figure stuff out. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I would help anyone do anything if I could. if I know how to do it, I'll help you do it.
Yeah,
I have
you've
good
learned a lot
ideas
in this time, and
Yeah.
you're able to teach other people about things, and that's all we can do.
I have good
is help-
ideas about
help
how
people out.
things should be accomplished, and they generally are kind of spot on. Definitely easier than the hard way around. I'm going to find the easy way around. I'm going to find the things that don't take a lot of effort, because I'm not a huge effort maker in rote ways. I don't like convention. I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. I want to find novel ways to do it. I'm like an idea generator kind of person. So,
Teresa Roebuck, thank you so much for taking your time out and telling me your story.
I haven't talked this much
That was
about myself
fantastic.
in decades.
No,
It's crazy.
Everyone has a story. Teresa
Yeah,
Roebuck has a story.
I do.
And it's still going.
People have told me I should write stuff that I've done down, or write a book or whatever.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, well, we'll see. I'm kind of too busy living it to write about it right now. So
Transcribe
maybe
this
someday.
podcast. Put it
Yeah,
out there.
we could definitely. I would definitely love to have a transcription of the podcast, and I could pull things out of it and go, oh yeah, I could embellish on that a little more or whatever. So, but yeah, bought the house, lived here since '92. Married my sweet husband in '95. Had our youngest in '96. Mariah's been with me since '84. Single mom for 8 years. Put myself through school. Bought a house on my own. Serial entrepreneur. Yeah, life shouldn't be boring.
Mm-hmm.
It just shouldn't be boring.
Any last words for the people?
Hey. Yeah, really, Liv, that's great. If I can do something for you, ask me. I'll be happy to be of service. I like it.
Thank you, Teresa Roebuck.
Thank you, Keys Dan Keys, whichever. Well, you got a good battery on that thing.
Man, we could have gone another
Digital?
6 hours.
Awesome. So that's one of the newer digital.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm very
Bought
happy
a
I got
small
this thing.
one, but I have never had a big long one. I've often told my friend that both Mariah and Joe Claire, we have long conversations, and I've been telling them for years we need to record our conversations, because
Start a
there's
podcast.
just a ton of just lovely things that come out of our conversations.
You want to start a podcast?
It's a thought. They've told me I should.
Do it.
My problem
It's
is
easy.
I need someone to talk to. I can't do it by myself.
I
So
have
what
one-
you do is
Yeah.
great.
I have one called the Keys Dan Show, and that's if I'm trying to learn things on my own. Mm-hmm. And I don't have anybody to talk to, I use that one.
Yeah.
And it's not as popular, but if I'm going to be learning something anyway, I might as well talk it out.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
I like a microphone in front of my face.
Oh.
But the What Makes You Famous podcast, I get to learn things from
Yeah.
people and actually have conversations with people.
I used to run the soundboard.
Hey, I've done that too.
The thing with me is I think by talking.
Mhm.
I know there are people who know what they want to say. They think in their head, and then they say what they think. That's not the way my brain works.
I talk before I think a lot of
I
times.
literally think by talking. And so I don't know what I think about something until somebody asks me about it. Or I
Right.
don't know what I'm going to say until someone asks me about it. So I need that input.
People
So I need
often
someone to
ask
ask
me,
me a question, and
what
then
are
I'm
we going
good.
to talk about?
You know?
I never plan these things.
Yeah.
It's whatever you say, and then, you know what?
comes
That's
to
kind of
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking that you're good the way you'll pick up on something.
kind of
Don't
interesting.
forget anything while you're talking.
Oh no! I try to stay present. Put the phones away. I'm talking to you, and then
Yeah.
sometimes you're there.
He's
That's
up
cool.
there, yeah.
If I'd have had 3 microphones set up, we'd have had a 3-way. Fantastic.
Bruce thinks he doesn't like to talk to people, which is really hilarious because he is such a charmer and he loves to tell a good story and he does enjoy talking to people. But he'll tell you, I don't have anything to say. He's got great stories. You should talk to this man.
Yeah. Stay
Some of
tuned.
his-
Stay tuned, my good listeners. You probably might hear a little bit more about Bruce.
Well, that's up to him.
Thank you, Teresa Roebuck.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to meet you. Story, and he does enjoy talking to people. But he'll tell you, I don't have anything to say. He's got great stories. You should talk to this man.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, my good listeners. You probably might hear a little bit more about Bruce.
Well, that's up to him.
Thank you, Teresa Roebuck.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to meet you.
Well, there you have it, party people. I told you. Everybody has a story. Teresa Roebuck has had a story. She's still having a story. She's still living that life. Traveled all over the world and just helping people all over this planet. And just like me, she gets bored doing one thing for a long time, has to have several fingers in several different pots so that she doesn't stay bored. So she stays interesting. Life is interesting. I like putting myself into my work, and my work, I need to make it fun. And that's what Teresa Roebuck does. She makes her work fun. She's learned a lot. And what she does with that knowledge is she teaches a lot. Not only with being an official teacher at a school, she's about to get her lifetime teaching degree. I fully believe she's going to do that. But she's also teaching about the skincare products that she's doing and teaching people how to better themselves and make themselves look and feel better. So find Teresa Roebuck online. I put the notes, the links in the show notes to her various pages, her regular website, and her Facebook and Instagram page. So find Teresa Roebuck. And not only is she an interesting person, she's also birthed some interesting people. She's got 2 beautiful daughters. She's got a great husband and a great life right here in Conway, Arkansas. Teresa Roebuck. I'm so happy that I got to know you and got to talk to you for a little bit. Wow, we went over 3 hours. I think we did a pretty good podcast. Hopefully, a lot of people got to know you a little bit better and got an idea of who you are and an idea, really, of what podcasts are. It's getting to know people. It's having a conversation and letting everybody else in. Hey, it's like listening in on a phone conversation, listening in on a conversation at a table of people just trying to get to know each other. I'm so excited to be with that. This What Makes You Famous podcast has taken off like it has. And I look forward to more conversations. Thank you once again to Teresa Roebuck and Bruce Sellers. Her husband was sitting there on the other chair there, and he really didn't want to say too much, or he didn't want to be a part of it too much. But the things that he did say were just great interjections, great little insights and little tidbits. I tried to take my microphone off and make sure that it was closer to his face, and so you'd be able to hear what he was trying to say. So thank you once again for letting me into your home. I'd say it's a humble home. It's not. It's full of just beautiful things to see. Not only family pictures, but great artwork. You've really made a home for yourself in Conway, Arkansas. Thanks again, Teresa Roebuck. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call at 501-470-6386 or email info@radiowhat.com. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. Radio What, the music you want, with another great quote. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Dr. Seuss. The music you want is on RadioWhat.com. Tweet, yo. Follow Radio What on Twitter @Radio What Twit. Tweet, yo.